This is going to be a hard podcast for me to make because I have entirely too much to say. I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to warn you. I don't know how to create a sense of expectation. This is a difficult thing to wrap my head around, but I feel I would be remiss not to talk about this because I'm watching lots of reactions. I'm loving what everybody's saying, and I know we're going to be talking about this for a long time. This is not the final say, not from me, not from anybody. Even if I actually don't say anything else about this, I'm just throwing in my 2 cents, and there is a lot of sense to be thrown into this. All right, this is the cultural event of, so far, maybe my lifetime. This might be the cultural event of my lifetime. The Kendrick Lamar versus Drake beef that has amalgamated in this Super Bowl performance that goes beyond the beef, but not in the sense that it goes like beyond the entirety of the beef, right? Like if you understand that this beef has actually been going for both of these artists' entire career, that this is like a spiritual battle, like basically a game of football that these two artists have been engaged with for a long time, that Kendrick just won, and he won to the same extent that the Eagles won the Super Bowl he performed at. All I'm going to say about the actual football game, look, I'm not an American football watcher. I'm not invested in the narrative, but this was one of the worst sports games I have ever sat through. It is abysmal, the performance on the part of the Chiefs. And I remember for the last couple of years, the Chiefs have been the talk of the town. You know, they had the Taylor Swift date. She only showed up a little bit in this Super Bowl, not looking happy. And, you know, there's lots of conspiracy theorizing about the stagedness of these things. I think that sports are a little too chaotic to, I don't know, maybe that's part of the illusion, but it's hard for me to actually believe that these things are staged to that degree. Like, I think you can stage who ends up where, but I think it's more like the talent is arranged in ways that will create natural results than it is that like the specific play-by-play is being planned out. But I could be wrong. Making good television takes a lot of forethought, but also, chaos is fun, and people who appreciate sports, which is the people watching it, they, at the core anyways, beyond people like me who are literally just there to see the Kendrick performance, they appreciate the nuance that is recognizable in something that isn't in fact planned, no matter what the protests of the losing team may suggest. I watched this game in a room full of people. I will end up describing this room and the people in it. Not immediately, it's not important yet, but it will be. There is so much to say about this. Kendrick has been building to this performance for a long time. Basically, this is the timeline of events in my mind. Kendrick gets invited to be on a song with Drake and J. Cole that is meant to establish the three of them as the big three once again. It's meant to reestablish this idea that they are the top three rappers because Drake is the numbers guy, Kendrick is the bars guy, and J. Cole is the guy who, for some reason, is still in the conversation. And Kendrick looked at that and said, this is not the case. If this had been what y'all wanted to do 12 years ago, maybe this would have been something, but this is not the thing anymore. I'm not a part of this. So Drake and J. Cole just went and did it as a two-person thing, and they went and shouted out Kendrick, but in a way that says, hey, you're still peers with us too, friend. And Kendrick said, no, I'm not. I have far exceeded you both in the last 12 years. And in fact, I'm very happy you've given me the opportunity to make that clear. Now, Drake, being the sensitive rapper that he is, could not help himself but to take this as a personal attack and decide to go after Kendrick. And the only way that he feasibly could beat Kendrick in a rap battle is to just outsell him, just have songs that are more popular and be able to say, well, look, at the end of the day, I pushed more records. And the problem with that is he couldn't bully Kendrick the way he could bully like an obvious dumbass douchebag like Meek Mill. Like, most musicians are not particularly intelligent or artful people. They are people who have a talent in one or two avenues that someone figured out how to exploit. And most of the time, if you're trying to avoid being exploited as an artist, it's incredibly hard to have any success. Kendrick Lamar is somebody who let himself be exploited. He pimped his butterfly until a point where he proved to himself, I can do this on my own. I literally don't need anybody helping me. I can do this. I'm so powerful that people will work for me because they know that I know what I'm doing. So he's beyond the level of having to pimp his butterfly anymore. He's at the level of putting you into your cocoon so you can pimp your butterfly. There's going to be so many tangents in this video. I have to recollect myself to center. I need you to understand. I feel a spiritual connection to Kendrick Lamar that I know goes beyond most of the people listening to this. And that's not inclusive of, you know who you are. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, there's no way that a white trans girl from Virginia knows more about Kendrick than I do, you might be right. I was born in Oakland, have no experience of living there, but Del the Funky Homo Sapiens, one of my favorite artists in the world, and I grew up in Virginia Beach, where the Clips and Missy Elliott come from. And Missy was a big inspiration on me growing up, but I'm only recently really understanding what all of these artists have been saying. And it's taking a lot to pack my brain with all the information that these people have been throwing out. But I'm a detail-oriented person. I'm the type of person who reads into every single statement and is trying to find all those quadruple entendres. I find I'm very unsatisfied with most people who do analysis because of the fact that we all kind of analyze the bars that jump out at us, and then we kind of sidestep anything that we don't immediately understand. And I do think there's a sense of responsibility in that. You should not try to analyze something you don't get. But I also think we have to be more acknowledging of it. Like, by the way, I didn't get this bar. You know, like there has to be a little bit more like admitting that we would like more explanation. I love that Open Mike Eagle is always the one putting his head up and saying, like, could we actually just like get an explanation? Like, he would be willing to explain all his bars. I'd be willing to explain any bar. Ask me about any bar I've ever written. I will gladly explain it as best I can. I might not fully understand it, but I might come up with a pretty good explanation just because you asked me. Kendrick Lamar said in his interview with Timothée Chalamet that there are many times that he never knew something about himself until he heard a beat and found himself saying that thing over that beat. I think almost any artist can relate to that, but what that really showed me more than anything is I need to put myself in that circumstance more frequently. Like, nothing I've said so far in this podcast was planned. There's maybe 2 sentences that were things I thought of before I started recording, but like, I have an impossible amount to say about this. I could literally rant about this performance for probably days, and I'm going to try my best not to make it that fucking long. What I'm trying to say is that at the same time that I am not in the position to properly contextualize, like Professor Sky always says, and like was originated by the Company Man, because I'm white and I'm from Virginia for the most part, so like I mean, I've been to Compton, not to the places that Kendrick Lamar grew up, but I listen to a lot of Kendrick when I'm there, you know, like I am a tourist of Kendrick Lamar's culture, but in the same way that a preacher who talks about Jesus Christ has in you know, like the Bible Belt of the United States has probably never been to Israel, I am at least well versed in the Bible of what Kendrick Lamar is saying, and my God is definitely the one that talks to Kendrick when he's on his 6-mile runs every morning. I think the only way I'm going to be able to organize my thoughts on this performance at all is to just go in order, and so we're just going to go through like scene by scene, if you will, and break down what I see in this, which is not the complete picture. You should watch more than one video about this. I'm not going to be the last person to speak on it, obviously. Plenty of people already have. I watched a bunch of reactions to this. I will probably go a little bit deeper than most of the ones that came out before mine, but plenty will come out after. Company Man hasn't even made a video about this yet, so I want to have heard his opinion before I record my video, but I have too many thoughts. The way this starts is with a tic-tac-toe board drawn across the football field, but uniquely, it is an X, a square, an upside down triangle, and a circle in the four corners. Right away, because this is Kendrick Lamar, we're already in a mixed metaphor, right? Because tic-tac-toe, one of the oldest, simplest games in the world. The most straightforward strategy game. You can play it anywhere, anytime. It's probably been invented since like ancient history, because it is so straightforward. And it's also an easy game to draw. Like, if both of you understand tic-tac-toe, there's almost no way one of you is going to win unless one of you fucks up really badly. But there's two other things going on here as well, because the blocks that don't have anything in them are forming a cross, kind of. It's a plus sign, I guess. It's maybe you could even say it is the gamepad in the middle of the four buttons that are very clearly the PlayStation symbols. Shout out to Thought Crimes, because I probably wouldn't have even realized this if not for them pointing it out. And I also listen to more, some of my analysis will come from listening to their coverage, to listening to Read My Soul's coverage, watching Screwface John just actually react to it, which was a lot of fun, because it was everything he was expressing physically was something that was going on in my head, but I was in like a room full of people, so I wasn't trying to like really, react like that, but it felt nice to see somebody actually react the way I was feeling. PlayStation and some drank, technology got my soul, right? ADHD was the first to turn this TV off. Like, Kendrick has always been saying, y'all need to stop with the addictions. Y'all need to get off of your phone, get off of your game system, get off of whatever it is that you're pouring all your time into, and get with the culture. Get in front of people. Get in a situation where you're putting a bunch of people on. Think about how every performance Kendrick has done, even though I keep hearing people say, like, oh, he's centering on himself, but there are so many people on stage with him, and some of them are instantly recognizable, and many of them will become recognizable. I think it's hard for people to, like, understand the power of just having your face, like, even gloss across a screen once. Like, the more you become recognizable, the more, like, repeat viewings, like, I'll tell you right now, I did not know who Issa Rae was until she did the Denial is a River performance with Doechii, but I immediately was like, who is this? And so I searched Issa Rae on YouTube, and I end up with all the scenes of her rapping in a mirror from her show that I still haven't watched yet. And then I see her in a commercial in the Super Bowl, and I'm explaining to people at the party who Issa Rae is, and now she's in culture for me, So, like, that's the level of, if you put, like, if in the way that Doechii and Kendrick have been doing, like, 75 black people on stage, like, you just created 75 potential celebrities in a way that I don't think people, like, understand it that way, because they're like, well, you were just I don't know, in the background. Yeah, but people are studying the background of everything Kendrick Lamar does. Nobody mistook seeing Serena Williams. She's on screen for like 2 seconds, and everybody knew she was there. So, like, that's how quickly these faces are registering with you, whether you recognize them or not. But, like, if you see them again, you're seeing them again. Eventually, you know who they are. That's what it means to put people on, to make them recognizable, to put those faces in front of people. Doechii has pointed out that there are more girls that look almost exactly like her than you could possibly imagine, because she found every single girl who is her height and complexion and put them in the same uniform, and literally made a point to disappear into a crowd of them during her Grammy performance and have different people singing, so that it's actually confusing whether she is singing or not. Like, that is the actual message of the performance. One of my all-time favorite songs is called Hollywood Squares by Dillinger Escape Plan. It is in my head all the fucking time, despite being a very intense song. And the main message of the song is that tic-tac-toe is this sort of endless game that can be internalized. Like, if you're always in a state of winning or losing against yourself, like an endless game you're playing with yourself of tic-tac-toe. Game over, you win. Game over, I win. Game over, you win. That's kind of how the song goes. O's and X's, X's and O's, except that Kendrick has involved more than just X's and O's. There's this upside down, I note, triangle. It's actually a V. We'll get into that. And a square. Again, these are the PlayStation symbols, except that the triangle is inverted. Because triangle, holy trinity, would be a holy symbol, but this is not that. This is an unholy symbol. This is gaming. This is addiction. Remember, the whole point of this is turn the TV off. And I think it's oddly appropriate that this is like the worst football game I've ever seen. When I came home, so Bird and I, my husband, we went to a party with maybe 20 or so people watching this game, a miserable, shitty game. After the halftime show, we left because Bird has work in the morning and we didn't care about the game itself. It was bad. And when we got home, my mom was sitting with the TV off, and I, talked to her, and she said, well, he said turn the TV off, and so as soon as the performance was over, I did. And I went, that's fucking awesome. That is so fucking awesome. He did exactly what he set out to do. He got my mom to go, all right, turn the TV off. Whew, beautiful. I've been waiting for this since GNX came out. I knew this was going to happen. This was such poetry in motion, in the sense, I'm just noting that the number 30 is like ominously floating in lights above the stage. I don't know why, because this isn't the 30th anything. When I heard TV off for the first time, the first thought in my head was, I can't wait to hear this in the Super Bowl performance. We already knew it was a thing that was going to happen. We already knew that Not Like Us was the reason it was going to happen. The song sounds exactly like Not Like Us. It sounds like a replacement for it that could be played during the Super Bowl. And of course, they ended up playing Not Like Us and dovetailing it into TV Off. The song that I think it was Thought Crimes also who put this perfectly, that like this is the new mission. Like, Not Like Us was the mission, but like TV Off is now the mission. Like, this is how you carry that sentiment forward into the future. Not Like Us is not an eternal song. It is a super time and place thing. It's about killing one guy's career. TV Off is about killing everyone's career. It's about killing the old media model. It's about killing this entity that has empowered all of the slavery we have endured mentally over, the time since television's been invented. All right, I need to stop saying we and slavery as a white person in the same sentence. I'm going to get into real trouble for this video. Let's watch some more of this performance. It actually kind of opens with like arcade noises, like a bloop, 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 bloop. Like, it's very, very old school arcade noises as the lights switch on the 4 buttons, and then you hear the ba-ba, and instead of I don't remember the name of the singer who sings on the album, but we've got Uncle Samuel L. Jackson instead. It's your Uncle Sam. This is brilliant on so many fucking levels, because first of all, Uncle Sam's already been a character in Kendrick Lamar's music. Uncle Sam was one of the main characters of To Pimp a Butterfly. So immediately we know we are in the America of To Pimp a Butterfly. Why is Samuel L. Jackson Uncle Sam, besides the fact that his name is Sam and he's like the most famous black man alive, maybe, other than Morgan? No, probably more famous than Morgan Freeman, right? He was in Pulp Fiction. He was in Django Unchained. No better than Samuel under Django. That's a line from off of To Pimp a Butterfly. That's why he's here. Samuel from Django is Uncle Sam. and he's here in the flesh. This is the entirety of To Pimp a Butterfly in a character. Kendrick Lamar said in his interview with Timothée Chalamet before the thing, I knew two things based on this interview. One, he was not going to play anything very old. And two, he was definitely playing Man at the Garden. Those were the two things that were very clear from the Timothée Chalamet interview. I was surprised that he played Humble and DNA because to me those are old songs. They come from 2017. They are fucking old. But they're not as old as anything else he's made, and also that was the era where he first had a number one hit. Humble was his first number one hit, and DNA was also a pretty big deal around the same time. So like for a lot of America, that was their introduction to Kendrick Lamar, and he's kind of, I think, addressing this as like this, that's like the start of this phase, you know, that kind of climax is here in my mind. I think if To Pimp a Butterfly climaxed with, you know, all of the recognition he got off the back of that album, Damn climaxed here with the setup that it had for his takedown of Drake that was so thoroughly established on that album. And then it finally, the trigger getting pulled, you know, 8 years later, after the therapy session, after being sure he really wanted to do it and could really do it, and that like the American people were going to have his back, you know, because that was his fear. That's the whole fear on To Pimp a Butterfly is y'all won't have my back. Y'all won't actually support me if I do what I think I need to do. That was the fear he was exploring on that album, and America showed him that we have his back. And it took a lot. He had to do a lot to prove that to us, even to me. I'm not going to act like I was the most faithful person in the world to my ideal of what I thought Kendrick Lamar was going to bring to culture. I'm not going to act like I was always, you know, on my knees looking up at this man for what he is doing. But last year changed that. I can't go back. I cannot be blind ever again to the brilliance that is shining out of this genius. Samuel L. Jackson is iconic. Samuel L. Jackson is one of the greatest actors of our time. I mean, Pulp Fiction's one of my favorite movies. So for me, he's like in my brain. You know, it's like one of those actors who's so deeply embedded in my brain that I cannot imagine a world that does not include Samuel L. Jackson. So I think that's probably true for a lot of people in America. That's what makes him just like, aside from, again, being named Uncle Sam and referenced for his role on Django Unchained. If you don't understand what that means, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get myself canceled over trying to describe anything about how his character is in that movie. I assume you know. But I also just need to mention that, like, the reason this reads today is that Unk is, like, one of the big words of the last year. Like, one of the big slang terms that I know it's been around, but, like, in the last year, it's become super mainstream where everybody's calling everybody Unk. So, like, to bring out an uncle character and choose, like, the Unk. You know, a lot of people think that Snoop Dogg is the king of the Unks, but that's because they're thinking too music focused. Samuel L. Jackson is truly the god of all Unks on earth right now. And Kendrick Lamar, he always sees past the realm of what people are considering, right? Like, I think Timothée Chalamet was an interesting way to, I think the suggestion there was y'all need to be thinking actors, right? Like, because everybody was asking what musical guest will he bring other than SZA. We all knew SZA was going to be there. And, like, nothing felt realistic to me. Maybe if he had brought out some members of, like, Black Hippie, but in retrospect that, like, nobody would know who the fuck they are in this audience. Just being realistic, like, Kendrick is the only rapper who is at this transcendent level and can deliver this performance, you know, like, who hasn't already done it recently. Like, there's just not another person who is in the spot to deliver something that was going to please this many people besides him. And like, obviously SZA had to be there, but nobody else had to be there. And I think Kendrick really proved that by just delivering 13 minutes of solid fucking intrigue, you know. But there is a guest performer. It's Samuel L. Jackson. And I could, like, nobody in the room seemed to be clicking on that when I was watching. Like, people were still waiting. Like, where's the other guest? It's Sam Jackson. The Timothée Chalamet interview was to let you know, actor, you know, expect actor. I don't know why it was Timothée Chalamet in that interview. I don't know. I don't remember seeing him in the Super Bowl. I don't know what he had to do with it, but I don't know. I guess maybe he was there. He just wanted to do an interview with Kendrick about his Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't know why Timothée Chalamet was in that interview, but, you know, Sam Jackson was the man of the hour, and goddamn, he looks great. He looks amazing. Looks very happy to be doing it, too. This is the great American game, he says. Obviously, American football is the most popular sport in America. The Super Bowl is the biggest game in America. This is the great American game. Let's see what Kendrick thinks this really is. What is this game in Kendrick's mind? We start off in a square, in a little box car in the top left corner, authoritarian left, we'll call it. Here's Kendrick Lamar laying down his law, letting you know who he is specifically. A man who is a car. He literally is the GNX. He says it all about, he's been carnated, not just reincarnated, but also carnated, as stated at the end of that song, just like Utana at the end of the Utana movie. The first fucking thing he says is about his Gemini twin. That's so fucking sweet of him. As a system, the great American game, and whatever the first lyric of this song is not notated on these closed captions by the NFL, but the first thing that it notates him saying is, my Gemini twin back powering up, no more handshakes and hugs. The energy only circulate through us. My Gemini twin powering up. This is the whole fucking theme of the thing. Kendrick Lamar plays both sides. Kendrick Lamar is the man who plays all sides of the field. I finally got to the title of the fucking video. This is the theme of the entire performance. I'm both. Which means I'm all. Because y'all broke it all into two. Y'all decided it's two colors. Even though the American flag has three, y'all decided it's two colors. But I'm both. When you combine all the colors in the spectrum, depending on if you're looking at a monitor or if you're looking at paint, you're either getting white or black. So Kendrick put them together. This is going to get so fucking schizophrenic. If you mistakenly thought this was a new song, Kendrick sitting on top of the car doing this was exactly the same thing he was doing in the trailer for GNX. This little 1 minute song, and it's got like 3 beat switches in it. I think this song, this little 1 minute song, is Kendrick's statement of self. Like, he's done it plenty of times. Lots of statements of self. But this is 37-year-old Kendrick Lamar, as he describes himself in the interviews before this. The Apple Music interviews, they're the ones throwing the Super Bowl. 37-year-old Kendrick Lamar. This is his complete statement of self inside of 1 minute. So let's pick apart who is Kendrick Lamar that is about to deliver us this Super Bowl performance. Everybody must be judged, but this time God's only favoring us. I must emphasize, he keeps using the word us. And in the closed captions, it's capitalized every single time. U.S. U.S. If you don't know me that well, you might not understand that I use the name U.S. President Trixie Goldie Witch, but also it's the president of us because I am a system. Presidentiality over the many voices inside of myself. I believe that Kendrick is expressing the same thing because I just understand this motherfucker on a spiritual level y'all don't get. I'm sorry. Unless you like us. Okay. I don't think these lyrics are accurate to the closed captions here. I am fascinated by the fact that Kendrick started this performance with something that is so difficult to follow as like a live performance song, because the rest of it's not like that at all. Like, this feels very for him to start it off with this, but he's got the GNX car with an endless number of people popping out, which I saw this again in a room with 20 people. There was some younger people in there. I think the youngest kid was this 11-year-old who was a tremendous Kendrick Lamar fan, and as it's going on, he's like, they just seem to be spawning. They're just like spawning, right? It literally looks like an endless number of people are spawning out of this car, like a video game. Remember, the gaming metaphors are very important here. Okay, I had to look up the actual lyrics. Reincarnated with love, my Gemini twin back, powering up. Yeah, that's literally just like, I'm about to go Super Saiyan because me and my other half are both here and we're both ready to go. No more handshakes and hugs. The energy only circulate through us. Meaning, I don't need anybody's help. Between me and my other half is enough to keep my energy circulating. I got my hugs from myself. Everybody must be judged, but this time God only favoring us. 20 years in, still got that pen dedicated to bare hard truth. That's pretty straightforward. The etiquette speak with a vigilant tongue. Oof, the etiquette speak with a vigilant tongue. Great way to describe how he's like a hawk over them hills when it comes to the rap industry. The predicate this time is fuck you. Well, he didn't say that in the live performance. I'm carrying heavier hearts right now. I can power lift with Olympians too. Whoof. I'm carrying various darts right now. I desert this bitch like tiramisu. He's definitely saying dessert, but obviously desert. There's a lot. I desert this bitch like tiramisu. I'm carrying various darts right now. Carrying various. He just wanted to say I'm carrying various. It's such a good one. See, we go in body for body. I hand you a body. I'm probably a better masseuse. Yeah, true. I really don't bother nobody, but they run it by me if I got to clear out the room. Also true. You would not get the picture if I had to sit you for hours in front of the Louvre. What the fuck? You would not get the picture if I had to sit you for hours in front of the Louvre. Fuck. You would not have a soul even if I had told you to stand next to Johnny and Q. This line refers to fellow Black Hippie member Ab-Soul, as Kendrick name drops Schoolboy Q, and J-Rock, whose first name is Johnny, the other members of the collective. You would not have a soul, Ab-Soul, even if I had told you to stand next to J, Johnny, and Q. Started with nothing but government cheese, but now I can seize the government too. What does he mean that? Let's find out. Remember the food stamp color was tan and brown, but now the hunted in blue. Member, I said I'm the greatest back when you debated the number 1 and number 2. Topic was always hilarious to me. You carried him to me. I brung out the Christ. Yeah. That is the most Kendrick Lamar 1 minute of rapping that's ever happened. And it's so straightforward. Like, the first couple bars are a little weird because it's on some schizo shit. And then he's just like, by the way, I just dominated everything in the entire rap game. You all gave me the crown. I'm about to wear it. Let's fucking go. He wrote this song to be the way he opens this performance. He wrote this album to figure out what he was going to play during the Super Bowl. I have no doubts about this. When GNX came out, again, my first impression of this album was, oh, Kendrick looked at his discography and said, I don't have enough songs that I actually want to play at the Super Bowl. Let me go ahead and make an album full of songs that I would love to play at the Super Bowl. Like, I can imagine a world where GNX is as successful as Peekaboo, and I know that it doesn't seem as obviously mimetic, and that's why Peekaboo won, but GNX to me it sounds like dudes running into each other in football gear. Like, the whole song, the whole way the beat sounds, it sounds like scrimmage. It sounds like, tackles. It sounds like football music. I have to imagine that's the one that like actual football players are listening to. Kendrick played football. He knows. He is a sports guy. He's a guy who runs 6 miles every morning. Like, he is a intensively physical person, in spite of being also an intensively mental and emotional person. He's got that whole holy trinity really on lock. It's all he's working on all the time. He's made that very clear. This is a man about duty. This is a man about sending a message above everything, which is why we have to interpret the message. We have to keep radiating it out broader and broader and broader, make sure more people understand. I got to talk about how much I love the way that Kendrick moves. He just kind of is like swimming through his bars as he delivers these insane raps. And this is something I've come to appreciate more and more and more over the years. When I watch artists develop, like, you'll hear these changes in their sound that sometimes they go over better, sometimes they go over worse. In Kendrick's case, they go over perfectly, where artists will realize that if you're going to play to a huge stadium crowd, you have to make music that is capable of reverberating off of the walls of a stadium. Like, you have to make music that's going to sound correct when that sound bounces all over the room. And that can be really hard to do, especially with hip hop, because you're trying to rap quickly a lot of the time, and like fast doesn't always go over at that volume. But Kendrick has found this way to create these like tight pockets of quick rhythmic, like, I don't know, it's new flows, like flows that I don't think anybody else has really presented before, that are unbelievably hard to do. Like, when you watch him perform these songs live, they seem way harder than you first realize, because on the album he's performing it in like the most laid back, like, I've completely mastered this kind of fashion that makes it sound easy until you start trying to do it, until you like read along to the lyrics and you realize that the flow, even though it sounds natural, is like different on every fucking bar. He's always mixing it up. There's always something unique that makes every single line stand out. And so you hear all of them and you have to memorize all of them if you want to sing along. You can't just kind of lock into the flow and like sing along because you're reading the bars and you get what the flow is. You have to know the bars. And like, that is something I don't think enough rappers are understanding as like a key component to making something that's sticky like that, where like every line has to stand out. And that doesn't mean every line has to be a punchline. It just means they all have to have their own energy. You crash out, then you better break the backboard. Like, it's got such a weight to it. And like the next line, the line before that and the line after that also have a ton of weight. But if you are like somebody who really cares about Jack Dorsey, that's going to mean a lot more to you. I'm somebody who really cares about crashing out, So like, there's a line for everybody, but also every single one hits. So like, it's just, the songwriting of Kendrick Lamar is on a level that is educational to everyone else in how to rap better than you do so far. The revolution about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. God damn, so good. Kendrick's not the wrong guy. I mean, I understand why he would say that because it sounds hard as shit, but he's obviously the best we've ever had. I'm not saying he's the perfect man for the job, but he's easily the best man for the job that we've got, because there's not enough, there's just simply not enough. Too many people got quiet last year, and Kendrick got louder than everybody. I guess it's the wrong guy for the people who don't realize the choice they're really making, but I can't imagine a better candidate to bring me the culture war. Someone better squabble up. So once again, this is a song that, like, I don't know how you could hear this song for the first time and not think, oh, he wrote a song for his Super Bowl performance. Like, again, it's a song that kind of sounds like Not Like Us. It's explicitly football coded, squabble up. I mean, what is that other than a description of forming the line of scrimmage? Like, it was so explicit to me when this album came out. And like, again, I go back through his discography and I'm like, all right, while an empowering song is not like a fun kickoff song. It's not a song you listen to while you're actually butting heads in the field. When I hear music, it makes me dance is an actual song to make you get out and dance about your victory, or go get out and, butt heads and think about the victory you're about to have. So everybody pours out of Kendrick's car, and what we get first here is there's like a circle of dudes in white shirts just kind of putting their hands in a circle and like dancing around, and then you got three other guys who are doing the same thing but around Kendrick. This is on a level that I believe someone literally storyboarded this, like hand drew this. Like somebody sat down and image for image drew what this halftime show was going to look like, because the level of planning is unreal. And I don't know, I guess there's ways it doesn't have to literally be hand drawn. There's ways you can storyboard this otherwise, but like the planning here is unreal. And I say that as somebody who, my brother is a cinematographer. I understand how like unfathomably hard it is to get these shots that are being gotten in this video. Like, this is a level of cinematography people can't dream of, but it's Kendrick's team, which, like, this isn't talked about enough, but Kendrick's team has been revolutionizing music videos at least since Humble. Like, those camera tracking techniques in that fucking Under the Bridge scene have been copied endlessly. And I'm not saying that like they were invented for the sake of that video, but they were heavily popularized by that. Whoever figured out that they could do that and sold that to Kendrick for that video, that became a trademark. And like, he references it in other videos. It is a part of the like PG Lang visual language. Also, these like super far out shots that honestly remind me a lot of Hideaki Anno's directing. Like, I don't know what, I guess Stanley Kubrick would be another good comparison, which is one of the big influences on Anno, obviously. Like, but this feels like a Stanley Kubrick film in terms of how it's storyboarded and how it's blocked, the cinematography, but again, using techniques that did not exist in Kubrick's time. Like, we didn't have the robotics to get the steady cam. The shit that they're doing when Kendrick gets into the middle of the stage, again, I can't describe it to you. I don't have the know-how. It is next level technology, and the reason that exists is because NFL. Like, look into, if you don't know already, how many technological advancements have been made to film football. But like, there's like the most expensive cameras that exist in the world being flown on tight wires, like above, like literally flown above the, above the fucking field during these games. Like, and there's a room full of supercomputers creating all the graphics that appear on screen. Like, technology for football games is on another level, and the technology of this performance can't be duplicated easily. Like, it's going to take a lot of fucking money for somebody to make something that looks like this. I've heard people saying like that there was like a lack of ostentatiousness in the stagecraft and stuff, and I do think that like in the short term, and to most people, that will make this less impressive. But for someone like me, every time the shot like turns to something I've literally never seen before in stagecraft, my mind is like shot to space, and that happens kind of early on here. Let me find the moment. Woke up looking for the broccoli, hot key, put it on me like a Kamasi. I love how happy Kendrick sounds to be able to mention Kamasi, to name drop Kamasi Washington in the middle of the Super Bowl. A jazz artist that most of these people have never fucking heard of, even if they know all the words to this song. So yeah, Kendrick starts doing this kind of like box rhythm where he's going up left, up right, bottom left, bottom right. Again, he's kind of mimicking the structure of the stage he set up, because remember, there's a symbol in each of the corners. So he's like reaching up to each of the corners and creating this like box flow as the dancers kind of do a more elaborate interpretation of that movement that looks cooler. I'm sure there's more to be interpreted out of the dancing. I'm not the best at interpreting dance and like understanding it, so that's something you'll need to, I hope there will be more perspectives on YouTube. By the way, I really love that all of the girls have the like half pink hair. My brother Hope, his wife, has this hair, this exact hair dye style. So I was just like, oh my God, it's a Hope army. Okay, yeah, so right here, around 2 minutes, 15 seconds, the camera does this pull in where like all of the women dancing gather on this part of the stage and they put up their fists and the camera's coming in on Kendrick and he moves into this spot and like, this is the kind of thing that it feels very natural from a viewer perspective, but it takes super specific planning. Like he has to be standing just the right spot, you know? So like this was rehearsed so many fucking times to get this right. And it looks perfect. Now I have to mention also like there are many lyrical changes, mostly to censor the songs, you know, like these are pretty swear heavy songs. And so Kendrick's cutting a lot, but some of the changes are interesting. Most of these are just like very easy to read. Like, okay, yeah, he just swapped out the bad word for a different similar word, or he just kind of skips a beat. But there are places where he does make interesting changes. I'll try to note them where I can. IP ownership. The blueprint is by me. I had not really picked up that lyric until hearing him say it here live, like that he very clearly is saying IP. I just didn't realize that was a lyric. What an amazing line. IP ownership. That blueprint is by me. I want to be able to say that about everything I do. Brody won't go, but I know that he popping it. What in him and some what in him. That's a lot of what. You know, there's some lyrics you have to acknowledge, but you can't actually say. There's a level on which I think the spirit of some of these songs matter more than all of the specific lyrics. Like with this one, it matters more that he's playing Squabble Up than it matters every specific lyric of Squabble Up. Like obviously there's Drake disses studied throughout this. There is the spirit of GNX studied throughout this. Like to speak on this song in its entirety would be to speak on the whole era and to speak on GNX as a whole. But I think a lot of the lyrics here, he's kind of not even really saying them, you know, like he's bleeping them out. He's just kind of going through the motions of doing the whole song because it is the song it is, rather than every lyric necessarily being equally important. The imagery is more important. There's a lot going on in this performance. There's a lot that Kendrick is trying to balance in terms of acknowledging the songs, that they are themselves and that they are beloved songs, but also tying them into this narrative in a way where nothing interrupts anything, where like he skips over large swaths of songs, you know, lots of lyrics are cut out. Anything that doesn't make sense with the narrative or just is too much to play in front of this audience just gets cut. So like the songs keep switching between parts, and so it makes the parts that he picks feel very significant. Like whatever he is saying, super significant. But at this part, again, the significance of it is not so much the specific of the lyrics as the spirit of the lyrics. It's setting us up for what the rest of this is going to be. It's going to be GNX, it's going to be Drake diss, it's going to be football. You know, like the three important pillars of what this song is. Also interesting that during this song, there is a group of male dancers in white, female dancers in red, and Kendrick in blue. I don't know the significance of like this gender breakdown at this point in the song. There's parts where I do think that I can read what's going on with that, but I don't know what the symbolism is yet here. Hey, bro, can I get a drop? Nah, that's the best censored bar in this whole thing because it works even better. It's actually even better with the full drop and then just the nah. I think it's literally better than the original. I love the way he closes out the song with like these hard drums, squabble up, squabble up. To me, anytime I hear like the marching drum stuff, that's very Pharrell Williams because like he really incorporated the like full sound of a marching band doing the drums into his beats in a way that to me is very Virginia Beach, and Kendrick obviously respects it, pulls influence from Pharrell. I think it's a natural fit that somebody who wants that sound, like who's, you know, both of them want that because it's pep rally sound. Like they're people who enjoyed like that atmosphere of hearing the marching band, but being like, what if they were playing some dope hip hop? Like what if that epic sound was being applied to the genre I actually care about? And that's what Kendrick delivered here to like an insane degree is, what if hip hop and football were like so obviously integrated that they seemed inseparable? Samuel Jackson is so fucking good in his Uncle Sam role. Like, I can't imagine standing in front of the Super Bowl audience, looking at the performer performing in front of them and screaming at them that they need to tighten up. It's the best hype manning, most elaborate, insane hype manning I've ever seen. He kind of reminds me of the main like antagonist, I guess, of the Amazing Digital Circus, the Chompy Mouth Man. Like, it's that level of like antagonistic, like, you're trapped in my game, so you better dance for me, you know, type attitude. It's really interesting, I think, especially because it would have read very different if a white person had played this role, because I think that white people themselves would have innately sort of rejected it. They would have seen it as like, oh, this is race war, or this is like race baiting. But like, if you actually understand why Samuel L. Jackson is there, he still is standing for, he's there to represent the character he played in Django Unchained. He's there to be like the worst black man. That was the reason he took that role, is he wanted to play the worst black man in cinema. That was like his own words, is why he wanted that role. Like, he thought it, like, what if I played the most hateable, you know, character imaginable? Because he knew that there is a power in giving representation to something like that, as one of the most beloved men in the world, to play the most hateable character. Like, who else could even get away with that and it not like fuck up their career, you know? And here he is doing like the most lovable performance of the most hateable role, because it's the same character, just if he had the power of actually being Uncle Sam instead of just, you know, Uncle Sam's number one fan, so to speak. So Samuel L. Jackson tells him his performance is too loud and too ghetto, and asks him if he really knows how to play the game, which I think Thought Crimes are the ones who said, like, this is basically what, you know, white people who don't like Kendrick are going to be saying, you know, to him from the sidelines. There was a lot of outcry of being unable to literally understand what Kendrick was saying, and in fairness, in the house I was watching this in, the audio mix made that very difficult, and I'm sure it wasn't great in the live in general. The NFL upload of the song has like perfect audio mixing by comparison, but I do think like rapping quickly, you know, is something most people cannot wrap their heads around at all. I think this was probably more of a visual experience for anybody who didn't already know the songs. Now, having said that, there was an 11-year-old little white boy in this room who knew the words to most of Kendrick's songs that were done in this performance. He was heavily anticipating SZA's arrival, very invested, sang along to every non-dirty word of Not Like Us, which is the funniest thing about the experience I had watching this, but we'll get to that. But yeah, Sam Jackson is here to be the voice of America's doubt, the voice of America's, all right, Kendrick, you think you're hot shit. You really got to play the game the way that we expect it to be played, on top of being yourself. Remember, Kendrick plays the entire field. That is the thesis statement of this video. We're really going to get into it as we go, but the fact that he plays the whole field, he plays himself, he plays you, he plays me, he plays everyone. He plays all things. He's all things to all people. That's why he can carry the show almost entirely by himself. The only thing he needs is the presence of at least one woman so that it doesn't come off as a total sausage fest insofar as it's all him. There had to be at least a little bit of a feminine offset, but it almost seems like Kendrick views SZA as like the closest thing to a female version of himself that exists, in the way that he talks about their collaborations. So I was not expecting Humble, because as I said, It's kind of an old song, but it is also Kendrick's first #1 single. It's the first song that he could almost guarantee most of the people in this audience are going to recognize. If you know who Kendrick Lamar is, you probably know Humble, on top of not like if you didn't find out about him in 2024, you found out about him at least from Humble, if nothing before that. He's standing in the middle of a bunch of people dressed as an American flag. No better way to put it. They are arranged red, white, and blue. Kendrick's in the middle. He is directly in the center of the American flag. He is Middle America. He is the representative. He is the flag. He's red, white, and blue. He brought it all together. He's also black. That's important as well. Now, I think what I love about Humble being in here is that, again, this is the music video that kind of took everything off. Like, not just like the music video is as important as the song itself in terms of why it was so popular, because that video was huge. And again, it literally revolutionized cinematic techniques for music videos. Shit that was done in that video I'd never seen before, and I saw many, many, many times afterwards, including in other Kendrick videos and including in this performance, where some of those techniques are taken to a level that's actually insane, considering it's a live performance and this was all being cut on the fly. They're doing the head nod thing from the video, you know, the famous thing from that, except it's the guys in the flag instead of just a bunch of dudes in black t-shirts surrounding Kendrick Lamar. But it is a bunch of black guys, so it's similar in message, you know. There's the black element is still there, but it's Black America instead of just black. Well, I guess it was always Black America, but it's more explicit that it's America, I guess, in this case. And this song starts off with Kendrick, you know, describing, remembering the humble beginnings he comes from, and now being at this incredibly elevated level. And Humble is basically about trying to maintain humbleness when, like, everyone thinks that you don't have a reason to. Like, everyone you surround yourself with is telling you that you are above average, and you're trying your best to kind of downplay it, but also feeling like, I can't. Like, it's actually impossible because I'm so far above everyone else that, like, if all of you were being humble, you would be admitting how far above you I am. You know, that's essentially the message of the song. It's a wild, wild song, but it is the most, like, competitive. It's the most, like, hey, everyone else has to sit down because I'm here at the top. And the chorus is like this odd beatdown of, like, just kind of orchestrating that he doesn't have to be saying anything complicated. It's the way he says it. It's the fact that the rhythm of it is so unpredictable and so difficult to actually memorize. Like, the only way you're singing along to the hook of this song is if you specifically memorize it. You know, like the rhythm of him saying, hold up, bitch, sit down, little, bitch, hold up, little, sit down, little. You know, it's really hard to memorize the exact rhythm of it. So it's a challenge. The whole thing is a challenge. Can you do this? Can you make a hook like this? Can you make a bar like this? No, you can't. Sit down, be humble. You're not that Grey Poupon, that Avion, that TED Talk like I am. And, like, those things might sound barely above average in a way, but we also understand them as the above. That is pop culture above. That is, like, everyone knows it, but they all know it for being fancy, which things that are really fancy, people don't know about, you know. But Kendrick's not like that. He's not trying to be the kind of fancy you don't know about. He's trying to be the kind of fancy that puts you on game and puts you up a level. The kind of thing that makes you humble yourself to be greater so that you can humble those around you to also be greater. Girl, I can buy you the world instead of your ass the world, you know, just the little things. I'm a big fan of, okay, when he starts doing to the AM to the PM, PM to the AM, everybody starts doing this very slow kind of, like, odd movement, very Michael Jackson Thriller-esque, but it also to me reads as, like, just kind of a stretch and a very zen thing. You know, like, they're all doing the fist in the palm as they do this motion. A big part of dance to me that I think has to be acknowledged is, like, it's about stretching. Like, it's, like, for me anyway, as somebody who's spent a lot of my life sitting at a desk, like, I really appreciate the ability of dance to incorporate stretching into something fun as opposed to just doing it. And, like, you know, there's this aspect, I feel like a lot of people think dancing has to be like fun, exciting, and like exuberant. But like if you're just looking at it in terms of what is this doing for me, you know, like moving slowly, moving in a way that like you're controlling your breathing and your muscles and like really trying to, you know, get the movement that you're looking for in specific. This is the kind of movement I want to see, is I guess what I'm saying. Like, it makes me happy to see this incorporated. Like, it doesn't have to be flashy. It has to be meaningful. I also love a lot of Kendrick's pronunciations are very different. Like, the way he sings, sit down. It's hard to predict, even if you know the songs. You would not expect him to sing them this way, but it's perfect. Like, it's better, you know, like more memorable, fits the... Again, it takes a level of he had to have performed this over and over again, and through singing into the mic and hearing it back, figured out what voice is going to sound the best reverberating off of these walls. I have, like, for example, whenever I go to a fast food restaurant, I order all of my food in a voice like this because it cuts through their shitty microphones better. Like, there's a very flat tone you can use. It's like, yeah, can I get, you know, like, it just, if you understand the microphone in the stadium, you pick a voice that you know will carry. And he keeps this, sit down, almost Jerry Seinfeld-esque, like, rise and fall in his voice. It works super well. Hold up. Brrr. Gotta get so, like, it's not as intense as, like, yeah. You know, he's not trying to scare the audience, but there is some machine gun noise in here. All right, so... when we get to DNA is when shit gets really, really serious. This is when the performance starts taking on new meaning. Because I do think up until this point, we've just been in the Kendrick block. We've been in the top left. The top left is Kendrick's car, the GNX, the box car, the square. He is a square. Kendrick is a square. We all know this. He wrote ADHD. He wrote fucking Swimming Pools Drake. Kendrick's a square. But he leaves his square. He leaves his square, he humbles himself, he goes into his DNA and he tries to figure out, who am I really? And the truth is, he's everybody. Your DNA goes back forever. We all come from the same ancestral root. So if you're going into your DNA, you got everything in there. But Kendrick's like, I got everything except bitch in my DNA. So as he gets down onto the field, he's got intermingled red, white, and blue dancers behind him. And then he just starts running because that's what he does. This is a guy who runs 6 miles a day. I mean, you can tell his legs look chonky as fuck. Now, there's a moment when Kendrick crosses about halfway across the field where he fucks up the lyrics. I was born like this, since one like this, immaculate conception. I transform like this, perform like this. Was Yeshua new conception. I think he accidentally says, I was born like this, perform like this, was Yeshua new weapon. I transform like this, perform like this, was Yeshua new weapon. So, understandable mistake. You can kind of see it in his face that he's like, ah, shit. But he just kind of rolls with it. But I'm going to tell you why I think he fucked up in this moment. It could have even been something he accounted that it could happen. And when I saw it at first, obviously my immediate thought, man's running across a field. This is the moment you would forget your lyric, right? But there's a little bit more to it. Because he also crosses the halfway mark of the field at like exactly that moment. This is when the Gemini twin took over. This is a different Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar switched in this moment. This is my theory. I know, I'm being very schizo about this. I think Kendrick Lamar, like, changed personas when he crossed the threshold of the camera in this moment. And that caused him to stumble because everything is so fucking perfectly planned in this performance. Like, I know he's running full speed. Again, if anything was going to trigger that kind of lap. But I think this is the moment he crossed the field. This is the moment he became the guy on the other team. This is the moment that Kendrick switches and plays the other side, is when he runs across the field. And that's why I think he stumbled on the lyrics, because he was literally shifting gears in such a profound way. When this man runs, God starts talking to him. You know, like, I don't know what he heard in that moment. He stumbled for just a second over one bar, reminding himself twice that he is Yeshua's new weapon, that he is in fact the voice of God, as he crossed that threshold of the halfway mark of the field. He then completely kills his dancing and rapping, on the other side where he's got all the guys ducked down like behind him. And he goes, I wish I was fed, but he doesn't say forgiveness. Instead, we get... My brain skipped a beat when I heard this. When Euphoria started playing, I was actually in disbelief because I knew he was going to play Not Like Us. People all night, everybody, all week, all month, all year, all anybody's been saying, is he going to play Not Like Us as Super? Of course he's going to play fucking Not Like Us. No universe did I expect to hear any of Euphoria in the middle of this. That was when I really geeked. Because first of all, if he plays Euphoria, obviously he's playing Not Like Us. But like, Euphoria is my favorite song from the fucking Beef. I didn't expect this at all. As soon as I was like, Hellcat, I was like, no, we're in Euphoria. It's not very much of it. But I was the first in the room to have the realization. I remember hearing somebody else go, wait a minute, this is Euphoria. No fucking shit, dude. You didn't hear the shoo. Island right here's a motorcade. I'm reaping what I sow, okay? Like I'm Joe, okay? Till they get chipped by a throwaway. Once a lame, always a lame. Have you ever walked your enemy down like with a poker face? Kendrick, after having crossed the field during DNA and arrived at the other side, then walks his entire group down the field back in the other direction. And it is literally walking his enemy down with a poker face. Like, he turned it into reality. He points at his smile when he says the poker face line. By the way, this is where you can really get a clear shot of the fact that he is wearing a lowercase a jeweled lowercase a necklace. Aubrey Graham, A minor. Holy fucking shit. Nobody even clicked that he was fucking with his name when he did the A minor thing. Until now. Unbelievable. Man, I know y'all play Sleep ever since Parmony? KDOT. Bop. That moment, just to make sure you're absolutely super sure of how exactingly planned this all is. But yeah, the little interstitial new bars to connect the songs are incredible. This middle moment is pivotal and also possibly the most difficult to interpret moment in the set. The one that I think read the least in the moment, but in the meta context is interesting because I knew Kendrick was going to play Man at the Garden because of the Timothée Chalamet interview. I haven't really touched on this. It's kind of interesting. I had thought about doing a separate video about it, but a lot of people talked about it. I don't think I have enough unique to say. But for whatever reason, I didn't see Timothée Chalamet in the Super Bowl at all. He wasn't in this performance. I don't know why this was arranged, other than that they're both very famous right now, and Timothée Chalamet kind of looks like Andrew Schultz weirdly for some reason right now. But there's this 3-minute clip of Kendrick driving Timothée Chalamet around in his GNX and interviewing him, or back and forth they're interviewing each other about the Super Bowl, or just like how they handle their careers in general. But in this interview, Kendrick makes a point to mention Man at the Garden, how he feels especially strongly about it being one of the easiest songs for him to write because it is so purely just how he feels, really like not being humble kind of. But it's an interesting song to imagine as part of a Super Bowl performance because it's super not hype in the instrumental. The lyrical content of it is very motivational. It's definitely a song that is like, if you are a player on your own time feeling emotional about yourself, this is your song. It is not the song you actually listen to on the field. And so instead of playing it as normal, Kendrick kind of reduces it to just the last 30 seconds that are the most direct and most obviously pertinent to the situation, because it's him basically saying, hey, I'm about to fucking kill the goat and flush the system, and it's all going to be about me now, which is the overall message. Basically, the mission statement of the whole performance is right here in Man at the Garden. But it's turned into a a cappella version of itself, where there's like a group behind Kendrick, I assume live, doing the a cappella instrumental as he raps the song. And it's interesting because there's a lyric where he says so annoying, and he like takes on a legitimate sense of being annoyed. Like, he looks off to the side, takes on this kind of arrogant annoyance, and then the way he delivers the last bars, even in the moment I thought it was weird. Like, the way he says, tell me why you deserve the greatest of all time. He almost like chokes himself out of saying the last word, and then kind of like stoically like walks off. Like, actually, fuck you. You know, you don't even get the end of the bar. It's such a like a mood, and I know he's doing it on purpose because everything in this is so fucking purposeful. So that moment really sticks out to me on rewatching, of like, he took this empowering song, but he really addressed the kind of brattiness of it. Because tell me why you think you deserve the greatest of all time. Like, the song throws it back at you as a listener. It's like, well, I know I'm the greatest of all time. What have you done to deserve the greatest of all time? And he puts that as less of like a revelation at the end of a song, and more as the turning point in this story of like, well, hold on a minute, you know, why, like, now that I've gone ahead and established that I am the greatest because of, you know, the fact that I am so humble it makes other people have to humble themselves, and also my DNA goes back to this, you know, ancestral greatness. On top of that, you know, now that I've identified myself as the greatest, I now have to figure out why you deserve me. Why do you get to have the greatest? And I think that the answer to that question is the entire audience singing A minor at the end of this. Like, that's how we came to deserve the greatest of all time, was just simply saying, no, you're right about everything, dog. Almost just as interesting to me as the performance of Man at the Garden, though, is Sam Jackson's bridge from that to the next section, because this is easily the most cryptic dialogue that he has in this performance. I see you brought your homeboys with you, the old culture cheat code. So this feels like a weirdly, like, almost a criticism of the Pop Out, because the Pop Out show was basically Kendrick brought every single person from every hood that he's ever met or has any contact with onto one stage and said unity, and everybody went, this is Culture United. You know, that's basically why that podcast has that name at this point. So here you have Sam Jackson saying, oh, okay, so you brought culture, you know, you used the homies, of course, the old culture cheat code. So it's basically saying it's not enough. It's him just once more saying it's not enough, you know, the whole way through, not enough, not enough. But beyond that, he doesn't say not enough. He says, scorekeeper, deduct 1 life. Scorekeeper, deduct 1 life. This isn't football. You don't deduct points in football. You also don't deduct lives. So Kendrick came into this with 2 lives. He came into this with himself and his Gemini shadow self. Did one of them just die? Did we just lose a Kendrick? Like, did the greatest of all time abandon us, or we only get... He said, do you want the famous me or the dangerous me? So maybe he gave us the famous him first, and then the famous him left, and now we're left with the dangerous him? I think all of these interpretations make sense. The fucking peekaboo dance is iconic. When the camera just cuts to a bunch of dudes doing this like really absurd looking pelvic thrust, half of them have their faces totally covered. Everyone's looking away from the camera. So it's like entirely focused on the motion. You know, like there's no sense of like identity from anybody. It's just like we are a wave doing this dance. The dance looks amazing. The outfits look amazing. Even if it's just all white, like the way that the fits like ruffle and everything, just really cool looking clothes. But the dance, the camera like changing, just like panning to another group of guys doing the same dance over and over, like it's such a unique brand of comedy. Like, the joke is that it's the same thing, but you saw it 3 different times, and then here comes Kendrick dancing in. Where did he come from? How did he get in there? Camera just leaves him. He starts saying what they talk about. They talk about nothing. The camera has abandoned him because it's peekaboo, and he's gonna keep peekabooing into the frame. So here's the part where I have to talk about, like, the song choices, because they're super interesting to me. It's like obvious crowd pleasers, but all of this has been happening so fast. I don't know how many people even realize like which songs are hits, but like Peekaboo has been this tremendous meme song because the bing boop bop boom boom blop blam is like a dog meme on fucking TikTok. You've got the song with SZA, Luther, that's going to come up being like literally the only song that competed with Christmas music through the Christmas season. Somebody made a video about this, but like the theory being like it just has no swears and like it's a good lovemaking song. There are going to be so many Luther babies in September, y'all. It's going to be crazy. The birth rate is literally going to skyrocket because of this fucking song. This fucking song, I mean. Y'all ain't ready for the Luther baby wave. Yeah, like everybody knew Not Like Us was an obvious choice, but like the kid, you know, who was looking forward to SZA's performance kept going like, they're definitely going to play 30 for 30, which they did not. And I knew they would not because that's not the big song. Luther's the big song. And their other older big song is the big song. But like there's so much calculation. Like Kendrick only played songs that almost everyone knows, whether they really understand that they know them or not. Like songs that, because his hits are all in different ways. Like they're all different avenues. Luther is a fucking R&B song. It's like almost not a rap song at all, but it's like his most fucking successful song recently, actually. Other than Not Like Us, Luther is the biggest Kendrick Lamar song maybe of all time. Like it will go down forever. I can't really explain what they talk about. They talk about nothing, what they talk about. They talk about nothing, what they talk about nothing truly means to me as a schizo. We'll just leave it at that. It's special. The fact that he literally pops up into the camera looking the wrong direction and then turns to the camera between the two peekaboos, it's like, it's so obvious but also so hard to do. Like you're thinking like, oh haha, he went peekaboo, he pop up, but like from the camera person's perspective, getting this shot is literally a masterpiece. Like, this is cinematography on a level I can't describe it because I couldn't tell you how to get this shot. I just know how hard it is to get this shot, particularly with the color design. Like, the color and lighting in this whole performance is fucking nuts. Kendrick looks like he is superimposed onto these guys through a green screen. Like, it's so crisp. And there's literally just a guy with a camera standing in the middle of the X in this scene. By the way, I didn't really address the fact that, like, so, you know, Kendrick had run down the middle of the field, which, by the way, I also didn't mention was a street covered in street lamps. So the field itself is the streets. The streets where, if you've seen any videos of Kendrick growing up, you know he was rapping literally in the middle of the streets surrounded by a group of people, just like what is happening in these videos. He's just recreating his own youth in the middle of a football field by rapping in the middle of the streets, surrounded by people who think he's the greatest rapper of all time because they've never heard somebody rap like this in the middle of the street. And then, you know, he gathers with his friends in front of a street lamp and asks why you deserve the greatest of all time. And then, like, reality warps, and suddenly we're inside of the X. And we've not spent any time inside of the X up till this point, so it's like this odd sense of teleportation, and we're in the middle of peekaboo, you know, like literally it feels like we just peekaboo arrived in a new place. Like the incorporation of all of the songs into a narrative that makes sense together. As somebody who is obsessed with like playlists and creating flow between things that didn't originally have planned flow, this is the most like masterful thing I've ever fucking seen. Peekaboo! And then like, yeah, all the new shit. Again, the interstitial stuff is magical. All of a sudden, you've gone from all these gangs of dudes doing this like preposterous cocksure dance, and then all of a sudden, bam, now we're with the ladies, and it's like this classy but sassy attitude. Everybody kind of looks like they're a member of TLC. And then we get to the fucking Not Like Us tease. It's incredibly funny to me. I heard this and my reaction is he's doing it. Like, regardlessly that they cut away, this was proof. They there's no way they're gonna blue ball you about it. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's bad performing. I watched the Screwface Jean reaction, and he had initially taken it as like this is a sign they're not gonna play it, and was like so let down. He almost checked out through the whole SZA section. I could tell he was not paying attention. He was just like, they're not gonna play Not Like Us, and then he's like, yeah, maybe they'll play it. Like after a couple minutes of like considering it, I heard this and was like, oh fuck. Like, he's just letting us know that he's gonna play it at the end. Like, I don't know, maybe this is just because I think like a troll, but like, to me this was like, I mean, first of all, I had no doubt he was gonna do it anyways. Like, the NFL had already said like, oh well, we don't control what Kendrick plays at the Super Bowl, which is basically saying, of fucking course why the fuck do you think we you know. But yeah, the tremendously obvious happened, but I did not expect buttering us up for it and playing little mind games about it. So this, for me, is the fun, unexpected part. This did not trip me up other than that this happened. You know, this was not... I didn't expect there to be lead-in. I didn't expect there to be buttering up. This made it even better. This made it feel better. Because, again, this is new content. This isn't Not Like Us. This is talking about Not Like Us musically with your backup dancers in the middle of what is already a crazy medley performance. And Kendrick, who has been running full force while rapping, doing peekaboo games for the last couple of minutes, is casually all of a sudden, maybe I'll think about it. What the fuck? Cool as a goddamn cucumber. And then the ooh, and the way that all four girls like switch between different poses as they're dropping. This is the kind of dancing, I feel like maybe it's not intuitive because there's not a clear rhythm to just the acapella that would make you think to move, but like there's obviously still a BPM behind it. Like, they are decreasing at the pitch at a consistent rate, so they're dancing to the BPM of the rate of the pitch drop. I really love that. Like, that's the kind of thing I would just casually do. So again, this is one of those like almost therapeutic visions of motion, like seeing something I feel under acknowledged. The ability to dance very clear, readable, familiar dance moves to a very unfamiliar, weird kind of experimental version of music, but that also just sounds natural. It's just four girls' voices, you know, but like doing something so dramatic and particular. Where else will you hear this? Where else in music does this sound exist? Seriously, where else in music does this sound exist that these four girls make at this moment? I don't know that it does. Okay, the SZA segment. I could be accused of reaching in how I'm going to describe this, but I think I'm on the money. And I remind you, we're talking about a Kendrick Lamar performance. So I expect more thought to be put into this than I'm actually capable of putting in myself. I cannot help but notice that the girls are walking in the shape of an S when Kendrick Lamar first starts singing Luther, making me think, oh, SZA. S for SZA coming in, right? Kendrick's verse is mercifully cut short because, honestly, I do think it takes too long to get to SZA in the real song. Not to say that I think it deserves to be truncated quite so much. I'm just saying, for a Super Bowl performance, this was exactly the right way to approach this song. Now, you've got SZA inside of a giant upside-down triangle. Unmistakably at this point, a vagina. Let's get real. She's in a big vaginally shaped platform full of women. She starts off on the ground. She literally begins her set like on her knees in this like achingly like feminine performance, just as like forwardly not just womanhood, but womanhood as it pertains to like, a relationship with a man. Like, it's a relationship song. It's a duet. There's a symbolic movement between them I'll get into momentarily. But if I had to describe what makes Luther such a powerful song besides just being wonderfully written, it is stupendously subtle. Reading the lyrics, like, there are sentiments you can pick up from it, but it is very much not clear exactly what the song's about. It seems to be kind of vaguely about a bunch of stuff. And that's true of a lot of Kendrick Lamar songs. I don't think any of them has ever quite been so subtle, in the sense that there's not a lot of lyrics to this song compared to any other Kendrick Lamar song. I think it might literally have some of the least lyrics of any of his songs. And also some of the most vague lyrics, where again, some of the sentiments are very clear, but most of it's not at all saying something very direct. It's the fact that in spite of how unclear it is, Kendrick and SZA sound like they are exactly on the same page. Like, this vague sentiment they're both trying to convey, even if they don't have the same words for it, they both get it perfectly. And that interplay between them is what makes them able to perform. SZA sounds unbelievably good. Like, literally, I was struggling to believe that it's possible to sound that. I was like, how is the technology like this? Like, to be able to sing. I just don't expect stadium sound to sound that good for someone singing, and like, she's not necessarily dancing per se, but moving around, giving an active performance in like a pretty heavy gear, like in terms of what she's wearing. Yeah, she can perform her fucking ass off, which is exactly why she gets to be in this Super Bowl performance. Like, why she gets to tour with Kendrick Lamar is that she is actually on that level. She is someone who can perform to the same level and be in the same breath, literally in the same breath. I really appreciate how this performance symbolizes sex without Kendrick even really getting close to SZA. Like, when you think about the way that they've tried to play into sex appeal before, right? Like Justin Timberlake tearing off fucking Janet Jackson's top. Like, the point is to show that intimacy, right? Or like a Madonna making out with Britney Spears. Like, there's lots of times where there's been sort of this stunt intimacy. But we all know that the Kendrick and SZA song is a sex song. We don't need them to pretend to fuck in front of us, which is like not really something anybody wants to see. And that's why they always end up being controversial moments that don't really click culturally when those things happen. It turns people off. This didn't turn anybody off, but it's an unbelievably clear sexual metaphor, because SZA drops down and does this pose that's like, I can't even, it's obviously sexual, but again, it's not in such a forward way that's like grotesque, it's like very artfully sexual is the best way I could put it. And Kendrick doesn't do anything indirectly. He's just kind of looking at her. The lights go down, but there's this implication in the fact that this V shape, which I already said I thought was a vagina, but it's about to become a penis, because it's also pointing downwards to an egg shape. There's a big circle down beneath the triangle. And when we descend from the triangle into the egg, there's this whirl of people who come circling into it. And then both Kendrick and SZA perform inside of that. So it's like they metaphorically just like impregnated themselves and had a baby. Like, I told you it's going to sound like I'm reaching, but really watch this really seriously. Watch it back thinking about this. Think about the metaphors, the sexual metaphors, what this part of the show is saying. And remember, this wraps up with Sam Jackson celebrating it, being like, yeah, this is what America wants. Because of course they do. They want sex. America wants the sex appeal. But Kendrick is not giving you what you think you want. He's giving you what he knows you actually want. He's giving you content. He's giving you narrative. He's giving you something to sink your teeth into that you do understand on an instinctive level. You don't have to be beaten over the head with it. Again, it's tremendously subtle. And it doesn't feel subtle when I say, like, okay, yeah, the giant arrow is a dick and the giant circle is an egg. Like, doesn't feel subtle to me when I look, because this is how I felt watching it the first time, was, holy fuck, this is a sex metaphor, you know? But that's because I'm different. This is why I'm like, well, I know Kendrick's putting that much thought into things. So, like, I'm going to assume that it is whatever I think it is. You know, like, whatever the most far-flung thing I think it could be, it probably is that, is how I look at these kinds of things. So, Kendrick and SZA have the most subtle metaphorical on-stage sex that's ever happened and are celebrated by Captain America, Uncle Sam, nice and calm. And then he says, don't mess this up. And of course, Not Like Us starts playing in the background. But it skips a beat. It gets you hype. But there's another. It's not blue balling this time because you're totally sure it's about to happen. It's hype. This is raw hype. Kendrick adds in just a few bars that make the point with even more clarity than the whole rest of the song's about to, just to remind you what the point of this is. Oh no, it's a cultural divide. Yeah, he just walked across it. I'm about to play you a song that at the party I was at, an 11-year-old white boy, 11, sang every non-swear word to with perfect accuracy, nailed the flow, nailed the inflections. He knew every word of Not Like Us. Certified lover boy, certified pedophile. A minor. There's a generation of children growing up with the understanding that, like, there are groomers and pedophiles trying to attack them, and they need to be on the constant lookout. It immediately outed academics. We all saw it happen. This is a crazy, crazy culture in a very good way that Kendrick Lamar has introduced, and we all know it's good. That's why we're letting it happen. People keep saying, but, like, I don't know, is this safe? Yes, this is the most safe for children things have ever been. Being honest with children that they need to protect themselves, most safe thing we've ever done. Kendrick is legitimately putting the tools in people's hands to protect themselves for their whole future. Because nobody gave him those tools. Nobody gave any of the other victims those tools. He's giving us those tools. It's a cultural divide. I'm going to get it on the floor. 40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music. I need 40 acres and a mule, not a 40 ounce and a pit bull. Bullshit. I think probably I don't need to be the one to explain this bar. They tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence. This is the most important bar imaginable. I mean, this is like the foundation of how I actually live my whole life. Like, I have turned down every opportunity to have an easy path to a short-term, like, success within the industry. And I've heard so many stories and watched so many downfalls. And it's not that I'm saying, like, oh, I've made all the right moves or whatever. Like, I'm still learning. You know, I'm not there yet. But it's because I am following what someone like Kendrick is saying and doing and, like, seeing the effect he has, that I know I'm sticking to the right plan. Where, like, I know that this authenticity is what will keep people invested in the long term, because you know that I'm not fucking bullshitting you. And the more layers I can peel back of my own insecurity, like, the more revealing I can be about myself, the more I gain that trust, you know. And I'll never forget watching that first, like, real interview with Denzel Curry, where he's ranting about how Kendrick is so successful because of how sensitive he is, Drake because of how sensitive he is. I'm gonna show the world how sensitive I am. And then he got massively more successful after that. And I think people know I'm sensitive, but I think it's in spite of my inability to really express it in a way that people connect with the way that Kendrick is able to. And it's by making it look like the coolest shit in the world. Like, hey, I'm afraid that our world's run by pedophiles. And we're all like, yeah, me too. I'm so glad someone cool agrees. Like, that's the energy of this song. You can't fake influence. Like, the bottom line is we all heard Kendrick, and he actually changed the world 12 years ago. Drake didn't have a place without Kendrick. Kendrick created the world that Drake could take advantage of, and Kendrick took it back. That's the true story that will be understood by history only because he educated us. The way the camera work takes off at this part is unfucking real. Like, I already said, there's lots of, advanced camera and like lighting techniques going on, even when it's just a guy with a handheld. But this is the part where it gets like so specific, so crazy. Again, the choreography here, absolutely insane. The level of trust between all these performers, like, this is the highest level. The crip walk all the way goddamn down the football field as he does not like us, to the unreal lighting. Everybody just dies on the field. And then there's the smiling. The insistent, evil smiling. This is so integral. The company man took special note of this a lot. And it's something that I don't feel like enough people really register, like the intentionality of expression, especially on the part of an artist, right? Because the generic Hollywood sort of like TV personality way of life, or even just the generic like charisma on command like way, I'm not referencing just the channel, but like he obviously taught himself to do this too, smiling constantly. Like, it is like good salesmanship to just teach yourself to always wear a smile, like, and it creates this kind of weird neutralizing alienism where like people who can't do that look at you like you're a different type of creature. And Kendrick is somebody who can fake a frown, like who can do the opposite on purpose of like, we all know he's been in celebrate. Like, the album is so celebratory that he obviously feels good. He obviously feels amazing about what he's accomplished through this. He basically said so on the album, but didn't show himself smiling. He doesn't smile in the videos. People kept calling him unbothered, commenting how unbothered he looked, how calm he looked. But specifically, the company man kept saying, he's not smiling. He's not smiling. And you see him smile a little bit in the Apple Music interview he gave beforehand. You see him smiling a little bit in the Timothée Chalamet interview. But in this performance, he doesn't really smile. He smiles a bit. He smiles. He has like legitimate smiles of like obviously just having a good time, feeling good, giving a great performance. But the smile that he unlocks here is nuts. It's an instant meme. I saw like every single YouTube channel I follow posted the image of fucking Kendrick passing by the camera, looking right into it with that demonic smile going, "Say Drake," looking like the fucking alien from Signs. Perfect he could have literally done that on purpose based on how many fucking M. Night Shyamalan references were in all this shit. What a twist! Say Drake. It's literally haunting. It's like it's as haunting as that moment from Signs. The way he's just suddenly addressing the camera with a smile in a way that he has deliberately not shown you for a fucking year is nuts. But he knew the whole time. He knew he was going to do this performance before he wrote GNX. You got to realize, the pop out was an ad for the capability of playing this song here. Because it would be one thing if he played that song and the crowd popped. He played that song 6 times and the crowd popped 6 times. And people talked about it for 6 weeks. And people talked about the beef for, at this point, going on a year. So, like, when he did the pop out, it was very clear that, like, if you let me play Not Like Us, you're going to get the most insane, most talked about, biggest pop you've ever seen at a live performance in history. you thought the pop out was that until you heard A minor at the Super Bowl, which is just the most seen thing. The whole room I was in, the whole room A minored. There were people in this room. There was, the kid, the 11-year-old kid who knew all the words, the whole time he was like buttered up for SZA. He's like, where's SZA? When's SZA coming out? Oh my God, SZA's here. He's so excited about SZA. SZA comes out. Someone else in the room goes, who's SZA? The host goes, her. He goes, who's she? SZA. This is a real exchange that happened during the performance. So very mixed company, people who were super into Kendrick, people who barely know Kendrick. Everyone knew A minor. In the crowd, in the room, everyone laughed after hearing it being done. Like, this is what the whole year built up to, was the idea that this would happen. Literally just the mere thought that we would hear A minor at the Super Bowl has been commanding a tremendous amount of discussion. And now that it's happened, it continues. I'm on 'em tough. I'ma do my stuff is my favorite reinterpolated lyric in this whole performance. Like, instead of fuck 'em up, I'ma do my stuff. It's I'm on 'em tough. I'ma do my stuff. It's really cute. I like it. I think it's funny that, like, in spite of the content of the, certified lover boy, certified, he doesn't actually say pedophile, but the A minor thing is clear as day. And we all know what the song's about, even children, but still, he cleaned up the performance at a level that, like, it's not really offensive. Like, it's hard to say that this is an offensive performance, even in comparison to the ads. Like, there's this breast cancer awareness ad that played that was just nonstop shoving tits in your face that I was like Janet Jackson feels so far in the rear view of being able to air that commercial during the Super Bowl. It felt like maybe they even did that to take the wind out of the sails of how controversial this could be taken as. This felt very tame for what it is, just because of how heavily Kendrick like cutified it to make it like palatable, but without really diluting the message at all, which is like crazy. But that's also the point. Like, that's the whole point of his whole career, right? Like, it's all kind of cutifying a core dark message to make it so everybody understands what the fuck is actually happening in this country. The crowd pop on A minor, of course, is as legendary as you would expect, and then it cuts straight to Serena Williams dancing. I don't think I need to comment on that. I think enough people have pointed out what makes that special. Now, the bridge of Not Like Us into TV Off was like a euphoric moment for me, in that it was like, nothing's more satisfying than a plan coming together. And when you feel like you're in on the plan and then it happens, like with the Drake beef, I felt like in on it in the way that I knew it was happening, but I was aggravated by it. Like, there are literally lyrics in my songs going back to like 2018 where I'm accosting Kendrick for not having just come out and dissed Drake. Like, to me, they were both throwing subs at each other. I know that Kendrick had come out and said, like, I packed up the emo rapper or whatever, like in that haha high five song. I know I misquoted it, but like, I just had in my mind taken it like, when are you just going to pull the fucking plug on this guy? And that's why it was so exciting when it finally happened. It was like, oh my God, thank God you've been serious this whole time. And not only that, you did it to such a degree that like I can never ever doubt you again about anything. So it's because of like the level of faith that I immediately developed in Kendrick through this beef that, again, when I heard GNX and I heard TV Off, like my immediate reaction to hearing the song was, the mission here is replace Not Like Us and give us something to play at the Super Bowl. And I honestly, at the time, had thought Not Like Us would not be played because it is an edgy, weird song about calling a guy a pedophile, and TV Off is a song about being at the fucking Super Bowl and telling the audience to turn this TV off doesn't have meaning in any other context than being a song you're going to play during the Super Bowl. Like, it's If you didn't think he was going to play it, I really have to like question your level of thought. Like, how could you? How? Like it's almost explicitly developed just to be played during the Super Bowl. It's so like I knew it was coming. I didn't know Not Like Us was definitely going to happen. So the fact that there was so much buttering up of Not Like Us made me almost forget that I hadn't heard TV Off yet. And since he doesn't play all of Not Like Us, you kind of unpredictably can't tell where it's going to end exactly. And then it into TV Off. And it's like, it to me was an, oh yeah. That's literally what went through my head. Oh yeah. We haven't even gotten to the point yet. Not Like Us wasn't the point. Not Like Us is just a very popular song we all love. The point is I cannot fucking believe that when this song comes on, he says, I go by the name of K dot dot. K dot dot. Because remember, it's spelled K and then a period and then D-O-T. People always say K dot. He himself has many times said dot, K dot, but it's K dot dot. That's the way Open Mike Eagles said it when he was talking about his prediction of how this would go. It cracked me up so fucking much. K dot dot. He sounds so fucking confident doing that little rant at the start of it. We came all the way from Compton, California to have this little party with y'all. Like, just, it just nails it. And then Mustard rips open. Oh, it's so fucking good. And then Mustard's just there. He just like appears in the middle of the fucking arena with the football. And he's just there carrying. Mustard has had the most insane year that a producer has ever had. This is a guy who doesn't rap. He's not like, he doesn't have like someone ghostwriting him bars so that he can make himself famous like Dr. Dre, right? Like Dr. Dre is a phenomenal producer who like raps so that people know who he is so he can have a brand as Dre. Ye, kind of similarly, phenomenal producer, just kind of started rapping because like he realized that he could, and he has taken a very interesting approach to keeping himself relevant beyond his production. Pharrell Williams, like, did some rapping, put himself in the beats a lot, like, has a persona outside of being a producer. Mustard is a name I've been hearing since YG's ripoff of Good Kid, Mad City back in 2013, as like, oh, this master producer, even back then, very well respected in the underground. But for a producer to transcend from like The Alchemist is famous if you know hip hop. If you don't know hip hop, you do not know who The Alchemist is. Mustard has become famous normally. Mustard has become famous in a way where he has tie-ins with mustard companies and gets to be in the Super Bowl and have everybody understand why he's there. Everybody knows that guy's Mustard. He's wearing a mustard-colored fucking jacket. All because they had the idea of screaming his fucking name in the sequel. Because we all knew Mustard on the Beat, ho. Like, it is the start. His name is mentioned at the very beginning of the biggest hit song of all time. And so if you're going to sequelize that, you have to address the mustardness of it all, and like putting Mustard at the forefront as like, by the way, this is the man who's made this possible. Like, we all love Kendrick, but Kendrick's had many, many songs that did not transpire to this level of popularity, and he also never did a song on a Mustard beat before this one. So clearly Mustard was a key fucking component here, and the fact that they doubled that magic on the song where they just scream his fucking name, proved the point. Proved it very, very well. So this is such a good thing that these guys have done together this year. And Mustard looks awesome. It looks like he's having a great time. Plot twist peekaboo. I just went to sleep after recording what you just heard. Because as soon as I heard Ain't No Other King in This Rap Thing, they siblings, I suddenly realized it was like almost 6 in the morning. And then I ended up watching the Company Man's reaction because that came out right around then. Woke up, finished that, watched Kiki's reaction, Kexke. Both of them reminded me of a couple of things that I had not touched on yet. So I am going to just jump back in the timeline here and touch on a few things before we get to the very end of this performance and create our little full circle moment. I kind of touched on already that I think Kendrick is the square, the boxcar, that the triangle upside down represents a vagina and womanhood in general, that the circle represents the product of man and woman coming together. In a way, I guess I would say it represents life and the creation of life. And what I did not address at all is X. X represents death. Whose death? X's death. XXXTentacion's death. I didn't know this about Peekaboo specifically, that it's a song that references the idea that Drake maybe had something to do with XXXTentacion's death, which is something that I remember hearing as like a rumor as soon as it happened. It's one of those lingering things that's kind of sat around in culture. And based on my level of understanding culture, I think it's entirely very possible that there's a direct correlation between Drake's opinion of XXXTentacion and the fact that he ended up dead. But I think that deserves a whole other video from me. I've actually sort of been requested to talk about the effect of X's death on the future of music, and I think beyond X, it also extends to Juice WRLD, Mac Miller, and Lil Peep, all of whom were in a period of becoming like the generation of big rappers from the Zoomers, and then they all died. What we got instead was Tekashi 6ix9ine. Luckily, Tekashi is like too dumb to not have blown up in the span of how long it took for him to completely self-immolate. Drake is a lot more conniving and backed by much bigger powers that be. I think if Kendrick had been earlier in his career when Drake had found him, he could have done a lot more damage to Kendrick. And it's only because Kendrick is legitimately the greatest genius in the genre that he has been able to simultaneously sit right next to the guy in the seat of power and also be ready to behead him at a moment's notice, and kind of signaling that to everybody else the whole time. Kiki pointed out that there's this song from Take Care by Drake that is an interlude track that's just Kendrick rapping. I didn't know this song, so I don't listen to Drake. But the song seems pretty explicitly to be about meeting Drake and being deeply, deeply uncomfortable with him, and just kind of viewing him as like an existential rival. Like, if you read that song as like, this is the moment that it began, like this is the seed of the feelings that were going to carry us to this beef. This is the moment Kendrick realized he hates the way that he walks, talks, and dresses. Like, it's all kind of in there, but it's very subtle. I also have to mention exactly the way that Kendrick transpired between each of these stations, because he went from the square down into the field, down into the streets. He ran across the street and back during DNA, creating like a both sides of the double helix DNA strand. He creates this expectation that he's gonna go off to the right, but then he doesn't. He actually turns up Peekaboo style in the middle of the X in the bottom left, which is like, it threw me for a loop when like I had to watch this back before I really had processed the fact that he stayed on the left, that the first two symbols he stays inside of are both on the left. And then after X, he moves back down the field into the V, copulates, shoots down into the egg, and is reborn, reincarnated down in the egg, and then spawns in the middle. So it ends up being that the main part of the performance, the very ending, all the Not Like Us and TV Off stuff. Actually, specifically, he starts from that right side of the street, comes to the middle, and then starts walking around in circles because he has brought us full circle. I'm so glad that Kiki used the phrase full circle moment, because this is literally the full circle moment. He's walking around in full circles with everyone who's been a part of the whole scene behind him. Everybody's striking their pose. Everybody's pointing skyward. You know, better not ever go to cell block 1. The women are actually like, everyone's like blocking their like several people are like blocking their privates as they put up the 1, like do not access, do not come to cell block 1. I'm extremely curious about this arrangement. When he says A minor, there's a very particular arrangement of the red, white, and blue dancers. I don't know if there's specific meaning to this arrangement because it feels almost chaotic. Like it's so well integrated that there doesn't seem to be a pattern, and maybe that's the intent in and of itself. It's just like, it's almost like in a rearrangement of the flag into something that all flows into each other. It looks like it's trying to spell something, but at the same time it doesn't appear to spell anything. So I'm not sure what this is going for, but I really am fascinated with it. I only just noticed as well that when he's finishing off Not Like Us, everybody in the rings around him is doing like the high fives that you do after a game, you know, when the two teams pass each other by. But again, it's all integrated, so everybody's on the same team. It's one team in two different circles high-fiving itself, and then they all circle around Kendrick. So the two circles have now formed around one singular inner circle of just Kendrick inside of the spotlight, and this is where it becomes truly just him. And, you know, we've, again, mentioned that people keep saying that this performance is mostly Kendrick focused, and, like, from an artist standpoint, again, that's true, but this is the only moment where it actually becomes, all right, everybody else out of here. It's me and Mustard. You know, also Mustard also counts as a performer in this, you know, another famous person that we're all going to be seeing performing on stages for years to come. It's just such an uncommon route to being this way. Yeah, the way that the camera starts going around the two of them, like as opposed to Kendrick had been walking circles around the camera before because he's talking to Drake and trying to create this imposing feeling of like, look, everyone in this stadium is encircling you, telling you that we want you out, you know, like this is like the moment of being surrounded with the knives for Julius Caesar, you know, like you're about to die, dog. And then it becomes the camera encircling Kendrick, all eyes on me, you know. Now we're all just looking at the team that brought us here, which is the duo Kendrick and Mustard. So then we finally get to the part where the two of them are standing next to each other, and basically Mustard like lends an ear, like, what's up, Kendrick, you know, and Kendrick's like, ain't no other king in this rap thing, they siblings. And then basically at the end of this, you know, as soon as we get to the second Mustard's out, and that's when it's truly purely just Kendrick left. I think he like laughed at the sea bass line, or maybe he almost forgot that he had to say the next line. He kind of laughs when he says, when I made it out, I made almost 50K from a show. I'm prophetic. They talk about it how I did it. Not they only talk about it how I get it. On the album, it's I'm prophetic. They only talk about it how I get it. Here it's I'm prophetic. They talk about it how I did it. The I'm prophetic bar is maybe my favorite bar in all of TV Off, because that is specifically the thing that impresses us all the most about Kendrick, is that he said what he was going to do over and over again, and then he did it, and he did it to a degree that nobody thought was actually possible, because nobody could really imagine what he was talking about. Like, he clearly had a vision in his head that this was all, not like specifically, you know, as he said, he never imagined a Super Bowl performance. He was just dedicated to rapping. But he knew that he had the capacity to, more than anyone else has ever done, prove that he is the greatest rapper alive. He always knew that he was going to find a context where somebody would push him to exert the full breadth of his understanding of what it would take to prove that, I think. Like, he's just been waiting for the challenge to rise to him so that he could actually go this far and go this extra and, like, give us a reason. You know, there has to be a narrative that's worth putting this level of effort into. And Kendrick found that narrative and went all the way and showed us, like, this is the height of what this art form can do culturally. I'm just a rapper. I'm literally just a guy who sits around and writes raps. That's my life. That's my job. That's all I do. But look at what that has led to. Look at how that's shifted power dynamics in the world. Look at how that's changed the way people talk about shit. Look at how that's inspired so many people who are going to take what he's doing and run way further with it, because he's just a guy who writes raps. He doesn't know how to do other stuff. You know, I'm just a person who makes analysis videos. I'm virtually incompetent in most other things. So, you know, I think people have a lot of expectation of Kendrick to do something more than just, like, be the greatest rapper of all time. But I think that's maybe enough. You know, like, it'd be nice if there was people in other categories. As he puts it, you know, there's not enough. Few solid people left, but it's not enough. He says it many times in this song, and I agree. It's not enough. There's not enough Kendrick Lamars. Kendrick shouldn't be singular. There should be a bunch of them running around, and there probably would be. Do I think XXXTentacion could have been another Kendrick Lamar? Actually, yeah. I really do think that. I will have to really make the case for that, you know, in another video, but I think Kendrick recognized that. I think he lost out on an opportunity to have had somebody that, you know, he probably didn't really know about, or, like, just starting to become famous, you know, on that level. A kid from South Florida. Why the fuck would Kendrick know about him until he was in front of everyone's faces, and then he was dead like that, you know? So I think he views it as, like, this thing that he got robbed of, in the same way the culture, because he's culture and the culture got robbed. So who took this from us? You know, how do we avenge that on a cultural level in a way that inspires people to know, like, yeah, you can be effective. You can be effective even just being a writer, you know, even being literally nonviolent, being somebody who does not personally want to commit violence, even if they understand the need of it and are willing to use it. Having no desire to do that, still being able to have this level of effect, non-violently. Just think about this. Ain't no other king in this rap thing, they siblings, nothing but my children, one shot they disappearin'. This is such an interesting couple of lyrics to me, because it is simultaneously super aggressive and, like, incredibly cozy and nice. So ain't no other king in this rap thing, right? So that's very singular. I'm at the top, nobody else. Everybody shut your mouths. Don't talk about how you're the greatest rapper. I'm the greatest rapper, right? For a rapper to say that is putting the target on their back for everybody else to come attack, which Kendrick's been doing nonstop since the beginning, but especially since the Control verse, right? So this doesn't surprise anybody that he'd make a statement like that. But they siblings. I have 2 younger siblings. Those are the closest people to me in the world. Those are the people I care about the absolute most. So if Kendrick says that these are his siblings, like, he's not putting them down at all by saying that they're not the king. You know, there's only one king, but the king's siblings are in a position of incredible power to be standing next to the king. So this is if you are willing to say Kendrick Lamar is the greatest rapper, uncontestedly, this is kind of a compliment in a backhanded way. Now, granted, as a rapper, it is kind of your job to say, well, how do I beat that? You know, like, how do I dethrone my big brother Kendrick, you know? But, like, in a historical sense, that literally meant murder. And I think what is beautiful about rap is that you don't have to literally kill one another. You can spiritually, you know, culturally kill someone, like Kendrick did with Drake, and it only becomes necessary because someone is toxic to the entity as a whole, toxic to the family, you know? But then for him to say nothing but my children, one shot they disappearing, so now he's saying, actually, I'm the parent of all these other rappers. They are all siblings with one another, but underneath of me at the top, they're my children, and I'll take them out. If they try to come at me, if my kids try to dethrone their dad, they're gone. You know, you as a son of a king, you have at once great opportunity and also great subservience, you know, to a power that is so far beyond you that, like, there's nothing you can do to question it. If you are to try, you will immediately be disappeared. You're either kissing the ring or you are out of here. I'm in the city where the flag be getting thrown like it was pass interference. Like, I don't know how you could have heard this on the album and not have immediately thought, oh man, I can't wait to hear that at the Super Bowl. Like, Kendrick didn't write a ton of football bars before this point. Even though obviously he has always been a football fan, he wasn't going out of his way to make, like, broad football references until GNX, where it just happens all the time. It's such a celebration of getting to do the Super Bowl performance. He literally says, walk in New Orleans with the etiquette of LA yelling mustard. I mean, like, this, he just prepared us for this moment, like, months ago. He's basically buttered us up for this moment, for this idea of a whole stadium screaming mustard together for months, and here it is. It's finally here. And when it washed over me in this moment, I was euphoric. So finally we get to the end. Turn this TV off. Turn this TV off. He puts the remote at the screen. He turns the lights off, and it just says game over in the lights back in the stadium. So we've come full circle. We finished the game. Kendrick played the entire field. He pushed all the buttons. He was involved at every stage. He unified everyone into one big team that is America. He basically made himself the king of America. He did this in front of the president, who probably did not really understand what was happening or a single fucking word of what Kendrick was saying. But Trump never in his wildest dreams could get an entire crowd of that size to say the same two words with so much excitement. By the way, I didn't even touch on this, but when the street first showed up, like, my first thought was, wait a minute, did he just put 4 basketball courts in the middle of this football game? Like, does this not look like... And then you realize, oh, actually it's lamps, but each one has a transformer box, and there's somebody sitting on each of the street lamps. So this is in reference to the All Right video where he's sitting up on the street lights. I've seen a lot of people saying they were surprised that he didn't play All Right or any of the other songs from To Pimp a Butterfly. He had been pretty explicit in the Chalamet interview that he was trying to stick to new stuff. I'm way more surprised that there's nothing from Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, but maybe that stuff is just not as remembered, you know? Again, even though All Right was this huge cultural moment, it was about a time and place that is gone. It is about a thing that transpired and, you know, a statement on a period of time. Kendrick, I think, something really changed between To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn about the way he was going to approach culture, and I think he's kind of been on the same message since Damn. To me, this is the reason this feels like such a complete full circle is that all of these songs feel like they were written from the perspective of the guy who was going to pull this trigger. Like, you know, he knew that this was definitely going to happen. I don't think he expected it to take so long from Damn until when the beef actually happened. But I think when we talk about Kendrick's, you know, prophecies, the prophecies are spelled out so clearly, especially on Element. Like, that's the song that, even though that one didn't get played here, feels like it's basically announcing what he's about to do. But you've got Humble and you've got DNA, and I think those were always going to be a part of the narrative of unifying the United States against the invasion of Canadian AI rappers. So let's go back through this on another layer and see if we can find more meaning out of what we've already discussed. What is the great American game? Because football is the most beloved game in America. But why football is so beloved has more to do with psychological manipulation and really like a meta-awareness of what makes people tick. Like, if you understand what people want to be relative to one another, I think football represents that extremely well. And when I say football in this case, I mean both American and English football. But the reason that American football is the way it is that we are a violent nation of contact sports. We want to see some level of brutality because Americans value the freedom to do something stupid. Like, it is at the core, there's a celebration of stupidity that is innate to American football in a way that like other countries kind of look down on this aspect of America, but Americans love this about ourselves, myself included. I love that Americans want to create and preserve space for stupidity. And I think Kendrick also loves that about America. I think that is a part of his thing. There's always an aspect of comedy. There's always an aspect of trolling. There's always an aspect of, I mean, for fuck's sake, the pinnacle moment of this entire arc is screaming the word mustard at the top of your lungs. It's something a 5-year-old would come up with, but contextually makes perfect sense. And that's why 5-year-olds love it and adults love it. We all love it because we all love mustard. The great American game is keeping it funny. The great American game is, how can you establish more power for yourself through nonviolence? If you have to resort to violence, then you put up a huge problem for yourself, right? Because that's now going to be following you. Everything that you do that culture doesn't approve of stacks up, and eventually it'll break you if culture really decides to do something about the fact that it doesn't approve. And in this modern hyper-interconnected society, it's a lot easier to do that than it's ever been, which is what empowered the Me Too movement, which is essentially what Kendrick could be considered the face of. This is literally the Me Too anthem. He said, "Hey, Drake, I hear you like him young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. You all know the lyrics. I don't have to spell this out. It's the Me Too anthem." Kendrick identified what the culture is here to police, in truth, at the core, which is keep these rich pedophiles out of our culture. Keep these people that are trying to take advantage of us out of our culture. Culture is meant to protect us. So if culture becomes warped through the lens of somebody who's trying to destroy us, then we have to be able to recognize that and remove it. And it's really hard to do because it's so much easier for people in power to manipulate you than it is for you to see through those manipulations and come to your own conclusions. Unless somebody who has a lot of power and influence gives you the tools to do so. And why are they giving you those tools? Because you will help them in kind. Kendrick Lamar will just get richer and more powerful if more people think that he's that guy. And Kendrick basically keeps insisting, hey, I won't misuse this power and influence you're giving me, except to the degree that I obviously am, in the sense that I'm a first world person who wants a black Grand National more than anything else. Like this fast car, this nice, fast, fancy car, this very rare car. Yeah, I value this more than anything. I will give you all an endless amount of what you want as long as I get to keep the black Grand National. And America said, Sure. Yeah, of course. Bro, take it. Take the car. Please, take the car. Live in the car. You can have Timothy Chalamet in the car if you want. Anybody you want in this we got you. But just please, never stop giving us whatever this is. All right, I'm going to go back through. I'm going to restart from the beginning. We're going to go through this entire thing over again because I hit pause. I went and watched Rob Markman's video, which was very good, and I watched the Rap Latte video with Dissect Podcast as a guest, and that was also very good. And both of those had given me a few new ideas that I wanted to go back through and touch on. But then I took a nap, woke up, and there were like 10 more videos about this thing that I've now seen. So I've now seen the John Hinged video, the Company Man's second video going back through about the symbolism, Professor Sky's video, Moxie Approved's video, Open Mike Eagle's video where he noticed the ... as well. Was like, do I get royalties for this? So fucking funny. Curtis King's video, Thought Crimes follow-up video about the XXXTentacion situation, which also I'm going to touch on some of the comments on that video, and Chillin' with Moniz video and Jeremy Heck's video. I have seen all of these as I now continue with this analysis because not only do I have to touch on some of the things that were said, and I'm not going to like restate everything everybody said. Some of those videos you should just watch. I particularly recommend that you definitely check out the Rap Latte podcast discussion, Curtis King's video, the second Company Man video. Professor Sky had some interesting points in his as well. It is an hour long though. And the Open Mike Eagle and John Hinge. I mean, if you can't get enough of this, which you probably can't if you've listened this far into this, then watch them all. I linked them all down below. But a lot of the things that were brought up in those videos inspired me to think even further about what was being said, and also just to reassess some of the stuff I was saying, because a lot of things that I've said in this, other people also ended up saying, which made me very happy because it means that we're all kind of on the same page. There were certain things I said that nobody has said yet, which also makes me really happy because it means that this video has a reason to exist. But I also just want to build on some of the things that other people are talking about and go back through, especially touching on stuff that I just didn't notice at all. Like, for instance, when you watch the video of this performance, it starts off with like this Apple Music halftime show. You know, like it's showing the Superdome from the outside, that it's like entirely a screen, and it's playing this song that I'm kind of almost surprised I didn't recognize, because I do know the song, but I didn't know it and didn't know I knew it, because contextually it's so strange to hear it here that it's a Gaiz Guevara song, as pointed out by Professor Sky. And I'm like, oh. You know, also as pointed out by Sky, that's like the most communist, most like JPEG Mafia, but actually stands on business, not just doing it for aesthetics type of a rapper. So it's interesting. Like, I wonder if Kendrick or anybody involved, you know, who at what stage of the process suggested that was going to be the lead-in track for this. It's very interesting. I've also heard that supposedly the buttons, the combination of buttons being pressed at the start here, is a cheat code in Grand Theft Auto to give you unlimited health. If that's true, that's hilarious and incredible. Aside from me not having really played Grand Theft Auto, I also don't know like that cheat codes were even still like a big thing by that point in gaming. Like, I assume it would be like San Andreas or something. Obviously not one of the newer not one of the newer Grand Theft Auto games. But yeah, the amount that this is like a PlayStation game. But I'm surprised more people haven't pointed out the upside down triangle. Like that is very different from what would be. Maybe people are thinking that it's just to get past like the copyright of literally using the PlayStation symbols, but I think it has much more to do with it being a V, and, you know, him choosing to represent the Holy Trinity in womanhood instead of in masculinity, even though there is still kind of a penetration metaphor when the arrow ends up pointing at the egg. All right, so I want to touch on the intro again, more from an imagery standpoint and also from just an audience expectation standpoint, because it is a super weird way to intro a show where like Sam Jackson really gets your attention and you really have this sense of like, okay, it's starting. But then it cuts to Kendrick kind of implaceable. Like even the camera's not on him right away when he starts rapping, and he's rapping by himself with no instrumental, kind of quickly, kind of not like loud or aggressively, just kind of to himself. And so there's this sense that he lets the audience like take a second to realize, it's started. I should quiet myself down and listen. Oh, I can't hear him. Like I can't hear unless I shut up. You know, and you could notice that like you hear an applause and you hear like kind of noise over him, but right as that noise is finishing, like as people are fully realizing, you know, the need for silence is when finally the violins kick in. It's such perfectly considered timing for like, you know, basically getting people into the headspace of, oh, right, I have to listen to the lyrics. It's rap. Oh, right, it's a rap performance, not just a bunch of bombast. Now, on the imagery level, anytime cars are involved, especially a person interacting with a car, there has to be some kind of sex going on metaphorically, just from a cinematic perspective. A scene that I always think about from the manga Gunslinger Girl, one of my old favorites, there's this young hitman who's like laying on top of a Mercedes, and this older guy comes and asks him, like, oh, do you like being on top of women? And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, that's a Mercedes. That car is a woman. You got to treat it like a woman. Now, a GNX, I don't think is a very feminine car. Actually, it seems like an incredibly masculine car. And the way that Kendrick is posing this car, like the metaphor that it exists to express in this album, is this idea that Kendrick has the car of his dreams and he has found his lane and he is going to speed down that lane. This car, the reason it is the car of his dreams is that and the reason that it is so apt to talk about metaphorically in describing himself is that it is much like himself. A car that, while it doesn't look flashy necessarily, like you can tell it's a nice car, but it doesn't look like some incredibly expensive car. It is, however, incredibly high performance. It is very fucking fast. It is a car that looks luxury, but actually being in it is better than being in most luxury cars in terms of what it's going to do for you. That is what Kendrick is trying to suggest that he is. I'm this car. I'm luxury and performance, but performance first. Luxury in service of performance. That is what he's trying to suggest himself as. So the GNX is him. It is, in that sense, his dick. To be on top of his own car is to be on his own dick. Think about this. This is a rare car. Kendrick's just standing on it. You know, he's standing on it because he knows that he has the money to buff that shit out. He's allowed to stand on his nice car. He's allowed to be on his own dick because he is the unparalleled king in this rap thing. Ye was, I think, the first to have the I don't need your pussy, bitch, I'm on my own dick lyric, back in Power. But Kendrick's made similar jokes. Never seen anybody do it this artfully, though. Also, when you think about that as the metaphor here, like, that is the first thing Kendrick showed the world, is him sitting on his own dick at the start of this halftime show, metaphorically speaking. So the red, white, and blue dancers start pouring out of the car. This is a spawn point where, even though it's just a small object, there's an infinite amount of interior space because that interior space is conceptual. In this case, we as adult intellectuals know that there is some way that they're coming up from under the stage out of the car. It looks amazing, by the way. Like, it actually does give you pause for a second to be like, so wait, is there stairs? Is there like because they're coming out really fast, like one after another. It's like, wait. How are they getting from under the stage out of the car? So already I was like impressed on a theater craft level. And this is the kind of thing where like people are talking about this like it's not an incredibly ostentatious performance because the stage doesn't look like, audacious or whatever, but like everything that's being done is at such a ridiculous technical level of craft. It's just in a different direction. It's not in the way that you're used to. It's something that could not be duplicated because it's actually so fucking hard to do. So initially, you've got red, white, and blue coming out of the car. All these people pour out of the car. Everyone's black, regardless what color they're wearing. There are no non-black people in this entire performance, which is obviously part of the message, and I think an awesome decision. I'll talk about that more as well as we get into it, but between Kendrick and Doechii, the putting black people on stage like unabashedly, not trying to, if y'all are going to say it's not DEI, then we're not going to DEI white people into the fucking performance for the sake of forced diversity either. This is a black performance, But interestingly enough, all of the white shirts and the blue shirts go down the stairs, and all the red shirts kind of collect at one edge of the stage. And then you've got this shot where you've got Kendrick all the way on the left, all the red people on the right. So it really poses him as the blue and them as the red, right? So is he team blue and that's team red over there? But they're about to be integrated because obviously Kendrick is wearing red, white, and blue. He's wearing red, white, and blue because he is going to integrate all these colors together. And the integration of red and blue in specific has been the metaphor of, it's just the same two gangs all the way up and all the way down. Like the turtles all the way down aspect of red versus blue has been like almost the absolute core message of Kendrick's art for as long as we've known about him. If you heard of Kendrick Lamar, you've heard him talk about that it's red versus blue, the topic of red or blue. So right off the bat, he's brought America on stage and is immediately addressing that red and blue are divided. Red and blue are on opposite sides of this stage. By the way, I guess there's a lot of people who talked about this performance don't seem to have realized that this song at the start was the preview song for GNX and that the lyrics are out there. But someone was asking about those last two. Remember I said on The Greatest back when you debated the number 1 and number 2, topic was always hilarious to me. You carried him to me. I brung out the, and then there's like a voice that screams like, Christ! I brung out the Christ. But obviously the rhyme is broom, right? Number 2, you carried him to me, I brung out the broom because he's about to sweep. And sweep in this context, we all know that we sweep the pedos out, like that's the Twitter terminology. That's the slang is, we're going to sweep them. But there's also people who are trying to sweep shit under the rug for those pedos. And then you've got sweep as in win everything. Like if I win what Kendrick did at the Grammys, winning all the Grammys. So like the broom iconography and metaphor can mean a ton of different things contextually, but he's just implying the word broom, switching it up and saying, I didn't actually bring the broom though. What is my broom? Christ. Christ is the broom that he is bringing. So, it goes above. He leaps from the modern contextual slang up to the higher metaphor, which also helps to the song is simultaneously tied to this moment because I get the broom reference because I know that's the way people talk right now, but the song doesn't have to be tied to this moment in that way long term because he will always have brought out the Christ. Super fucking good songwriting. And you'll notice that the moment that the Christ screams out and the lights start flashing is when the camera switches to him on the left and everybody in red on the right. So I really love the idea of Kendrick turning up to this show in his car, and he's got all of Black America in his car. He can fit all of Black America in his car because he is the magical GNX that functions like the House of Leaves. Now, he gets up and he has the amazing lyric where he says, the revolution's about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. I've heard people suggest that he's speaking to America like you're about to not get what you wanted. You're about to get the guy who's going to dismantle this thing you've built here. And I think that maybe is true. Maybe he is saying to the NFL, why would you put in front of everyone the guy who's telling them to stop watching you, to turn the TV off? On what level can you be cynical about these metaphors and think, well, people aren't really going to do it, though? My mom literally did. Me and Bird literally left the party after this, performance. So would we have even looked at the Super Bowl at all if he wasn't performing? Maybe. I mean, my dad always has it on every year, so it's not like I didn't see any of it last year. I didn't watch the halftime show, so maybe I saw less of it. I just remember it being the Taylor Swift show last year. But something that does intrigue me about this is that the conversation around this Super Bowl is mostly about Kendrick's performance. And obviously there's plenty of people who are talking about the game itself, but it was not about Donald Trump being there. It was not about Taylor Swift being there. It was about Kendrick being there. It was about whether or not Kendrick was going to play Not Like Us at the Super Bowl. And that is such a more interesting cultural place to be in than whether we're going to have to look at a lot of Taylor Swift or not. But I also think on some level Kendrick is talking to his fans, his people, even those of us who do believe he is that guy, the right guy. He's always on some level going to tell us, don't look at me as your prophet. Don't look to me because I am just one person and I will disappoint you ultimately. That was the whole message of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I had a comment the other day where somebody said that they are soul bonded to me, as parasocially. And I asked, are you also parasocially soul bonded to Kendrick Lamar? Just because he was on my mind, and I think of myself as like a preacher of Kendrick's church, So to me, being parasocially soul bonded to me does kind of make you parasocially soul bonded to Kendrick Lamar. The response they gave was something to the effect of, well, I consider myself a real black revolutionary, and I don't know if Kendrick's ever really going to do anything on the level that I would acknowledge that, I don't know if I'm just going to be disappointed by him on the level of a black revolutionary. And I totally understand that because Kendrick's playing all sides of the field, right? He's sending a revolutionary message, but in the most commercial space that it possibly could be. He's playing the game. He is showing you the game. But Kendrick also is framing it that we're trapped in the game. You have to play the game. If you can't play the game to the top level of the game, you're not going to affect any change. But also, we can take over the game. Look, the game, in my scenario, is being played just by black people. There's nobody else even here. We could be taking over this game. We could be the only ones playing the game. It could be a fun game. It could be a game that we do because it is fun. This looks like fun. Everything happening here looks like fun. It looks a lot more fun than the game that was being played outside the game. That game looked miserable. This game that Kendrick's playing looks really fun for everybody doing it. I think that a lot of revolutionary dialogue is focused rightly on how do we end suffering? How do we end destruction? How do we put a stop to the tyranny? But I think there also has to be some sense of conversation about okay, imagine that wasn't here. What would we be doing? What would we be doing if we could do whatever we want, right? And if we can find a way that we just do that, in spite of it all, in spite of all the circumstances around us, we are still nonetheless doing the thing we want to be doing, then that will empower us in and of itself to feel like, oh, right, we have the power to change things because we get to do what we want to do. I look at this Super Bowl performance and I see several hundred black performers putting on the show of a lifetime. Nobody, including Kendrick, who is on this stage, thought 10 years ago, I'm going to be performing at the Super Bowl in front of the biggest audience ever. And yet here we are, where that's what everyone on that stage was doing that night. As opposed to whatever else. Kendrick is somebody who thought he would die in a gunfight. He didn't think he would live to be in his 30s. And what he does on a casual night in his 30s is perform in front of the largest audience imaginable with 200 people that he trusts who are all amazing performers, who all understand the message of his work, who all come from similar backgrounds to him, who all similarly could have been somewhere else tonight. But this is where they got to be because Kendrick put them there. That's what the revolution is to me. It's regardlessly how this was funded, what this stands for in a commercial sense, whatever this is an ad for, you and I have forgotten all of the commercials we watched during the Super Bowl. You and I are not going to remember the play-by-play of the action of the Super Bowl. We're going to remember seeing several hundred black people putting on an incredible performance and having the time of their lives. Everybody who's up there is having the time of their lives. That is what Kendrick is literally doing that is revolutionary. Imagine if we had 25 Kendricks on 25 stages and all of them had this many people doing the performance at the same time. We'd have more people doing performance than there could be an amount of, there couldn't be violence. Too many people would be performing is what I'm trying to say. I think that's kind of the vision Kendrick's got here. Why aren't we all just dancing en masse? Why are you up there in the stands watching instead of doing this yourself? Well, at least you'll pay us to do it, right? As long as we get to have fun, maybe it's not so bad, But we got to make sure you understand that that the message of this performance is we still haven't gotten that 40 acres and a mule though. This is all fun, but there is more needed. It's not enough. The ultimate message, Kendrick's message, this whole thing, this whole entire arc, the message of it boils down to it's not enough. Turn this TV off. It's not enough. Okay, so this is fascinating. I said before that all of the blue shirts and white shirts left the stage and it's just red shirts left. But actually, all of the male red shirts left too. It's just the girls in all red who are left on stage. I don't know if there's any girls who aren't in all red during this performance either. So I don't know if there's something special in the symbolism, if it's literally just period blood, that straightforward of girls is red though. But there's a bunch of girls in red who are still on stage when he says the revolution lines, and then after that, half of them go to the other side of the stage. So there's a split in the girls, and they're each facing in different directions, facing different sides of the crowd. So there's been a division. And then out of the car comes 4 more guys in white shirts, and Kendrick kind of comes to stand in the middle of these 4 guys who all put their hands above him in a circle. And then there's a second circle of guys in white shirts who are down on the stairs below. This is the most mysterious symbolism to me in the show so far. This is the one, seeing all the guys putting their arms up in the 2 different circles really fascinates me. Because when I think what is squabbling up, I'm imagining 2 groups of teams huddling together and then getting into the line of scrimmage and then having the squabble, right? It's the whole act of group sports is squabbling up. And so when all the girls say someone better squabble up, they all kind of go to opposite sides. It's okay, we're setting the stage for this battle's about to begin because we're splitting into teams. But Kendrick's team then seems to be these 4 guys that came out of the truck. I think they symbolize maybe Black Hippie. They've got kind of more pronounced designs as well. They see, I don't know. It's not that people aren't super individual in this, because with the girls, they've all got the same hairstyle. But then there's parts where you've got guys with different hairstyles. So I don't know if anybody is meant to represent specific characters with the way that they're dressed. But this feels to me like Kendrick is being surrounded by, his close group of rap friends. And interestingly, the 4 guys who are surrounding him go down to join all the other white shirt guys once he starts rapping. So, again, it feels like those were his 4 closest guys out of this larger group of dudes who, are his associates. We end up in this situation where you've got the guys in white dancing on the stairs in front of Kendrick, and then all the girls in red dancing behind him. And then he starts doing what I can only describe as a box dance. He's going in a square over and over again, kind of reminding you, we are in the square stage. This is the square. He is the square man. Squabble up. Form a square. Let's let's square up. So interestingly enough, all the girls in red end up gathering back on a side of the stage, and Kendrick's kind of coming into the foreground closer to the camera. Like, he's gotten farther from the car, but he's still kind of doing the I'm on the left, they're on the right. And he's saying it's a whole other politics. It almost looks like all the girls are doing like a Sieg Heil or something. Like, I don't know if this is literally meant to be, all the like the right wingers on the... Using black women to send this message is interesting because it, like, if literally anybody else was doing like 4 fucking, arm to the sky Sieg Heil gestures in a row, that's immediately how it would read. But nobody said that because it's a bunch of black women who obviously aren't Nazis, but like, that's the people in red on the right side of the stage all gathered up while he started talking about another type of politics, doing Nazi salutes, while he's over here in blue on the left. I'm just saying, that's what it looks like to me. And then of course they all do this very like posse pose, like breakaway from that, to remind you who they really are. So at the end of the song, finally, he starts descending in the middle between the groups of lady dancers as they're going down the stairs, which, by the way, those are some steep fucking stairs. So these steps that they're doing, like, that is a treacherous looking move they're doing down those fucking stairs. All right, so he gets told to tighten up, and then we go into Humble. And now we've got the American flag where everybody's sort of knelt over. They've all got their arms on one another's backs, and it's the suggestion that it's sort of built a weave on the backs of black Americans. Like, the flag itself is made off of the backs of black Americans in this situation. And Kendrick's right smack in the middle of the flag. He is black America. He is the result of what the black Americans built. He is the height that this culture has reached of what we are calling America. And he's basically taking ownership of America, where, like, many revolutionaries have been like, well, America should die, right? Like, America as a concept should die. And I think if it changed enough, then it would functionally die in the way that we're thinking of it. But Kendrick is basically like, but this is who we are. Like, we were born in America. We are Americans. Like, we don't have another thing we can fight for. We can say that we're fighting for the fact that we were brought here from Africa, but we are not African. We are from America. It's like, what we're fighting for is a different America. We're not fighting for no America, because then we don't have anything. We want black America, So yeah, we got everybody doing the head nods. You got a guy with kind of Travis Scott hair and a guy with kind of Mario Judah hair on either side of Kendrick. I don't know if there's any significance to specific designs, because again, most people are either wearing some kind of bandana or some kind of face mask, or like a hoodie or like a beanie. But then you've just got a couple of dudes with really unique hairstyles that stand out, and it makes me wonder if it means anything. And I do believe there was a guy with red hair like that in the Humble music video, so it could even be that that's just the same dude. Like, I don't know how many of these guys are literally the same guys that were in the Humble video. That would be crazy if it's literally the same guys, because I said this earlier, that like just showing faces to people creates a kind of familiarity where, like, this is establishing the idea that like a Super Bowl halftime show can literally be 200 dancing black guys and nothing else, and like, when else in history has the biggest show in the world been that? Every time Kendrick performs his newer songs live, I realize that they sound like way more difficult than they do on the album. Like, he just makes them sound so easy the way he lays in to the beat so perfectly, and like, you don't realize how many words he's sneaking in because the syllables like are rolling off of each other so quickly. And then when you hear him do it with like that live emphasis, because he's trying to like keep that charged energy, then it's like, man, I don't know if I could actually perform those lyrics like with that rhythm, at that speed, at that energy, at that inflection, and then you add in all the dancing and everything he's doing. Like, the level of performance here is absolutely astounding, way above what I have seen anybody, come close to, really, other than like Lady Gaga, like somebody who is known for dance, singing, intense performances. I also have to comment on his outfit a little bit more now that I'm getting a really good look at it as he stepped into the light. There are some things very important things I have to note about this, and also some unimportant things. I know Open Mike Eagle really hates these jeans Kendrick wears. I love them because the man's fucking thighs are enormous. Like, I know it's that running, all that running he's doing. I suspect he's sprinting. It's not just running. I suspect there are some sprints in there because, god damn, he looks like he got them Chun-Li thighs. Like, I'm impressed. I cannot take my eyes off the thighs, is what I'm trying to say. I think I already mentioned the lowercase A minor. I've seen the argument that it's just the PG Lang A. It is obviously both. It has to be both. I haven't seen any analysis of the gloves. I assume that is just to look more football, but I'm not really sure. There's also a ring he's wearing over the gloves, and it does not look like a Super Bowl ring. I haven't heard anybody analyze the ring yet, but the jacket is incredibly important because the fucking text I couldn't read on it is Gloria. He's wearing Gloria on his jacket. Now, if you don't know, Gloria is his pen because he wrote a whole song about it. Gloria, I wanna take you to Euphoria. Oh, he takes Gloria to Euphoria during this performance, that's for sure. Now, if you know the song Gloria, it sounds unmistakably like a love song about a woman that he's been in a relationship with since he was in high school. And as you're listening to the song, you think it's like, why is it called Gloria? It's obviously about his wife. Oh, wait, no, it's about himself? Like, his pen is him, right? He's the one who writes. His pen's not a separate entity, it's not a woman named Gloria. He's a woman named Gloria. So, in the same way that he was on his own dick when he was on the car, he's also in his own pussy because he's inside of the Gloria jacket. How many ways is he going to fuck himself during this live show? None that hurt his career, apparently. This is how you masturbate publicly and don't get in trouble. So Gloria is red, white, and blue. Gloria is America. He has America in his pen. He has the womanhood and the manhood. That's another important part here. Like, I mentioned that he was standing on the left with all the women on the right, and there's going to be multiple times that, like, the men and women are separated, right? Here in Humble, the women are gone now. Like, after the women march down the stairs and he's left with the American flag formation, it's just men just doing the head nods at this point. So there had been women the whole time, but now there had been a point where the only man on stage was Kendrick, but he's also wearing the Gloria jacket, so he might also count as a woman in this case. He's playing all sides of the field, y'all. Kendrick is all things at all times. He is everyone. He is America. He is Black America, whether that means women or men. And he's also the red, white, and the blue in the American flag, He's everybody. So when we get down to the street, this is another interesting moment where the group splits in half. So we've once again squabbled up. We've once again formed teams, but there is no basis of color on these teams or gender because we already don't have the women involved. So it's all the guys who were in the flag, but now half of them are on one side, half are on the other, and Kendrick is doing this epic run from one side of the street to the other and playing for both teams. Now, on the other side of the field, the guys that are behind Kendrick do seem to have like a more specific formation. I'm not really sure what they are symbolizing because there's this above shot where you've got the bottom line is all white, and then you've got two lines above it of red, a line of blue, another line of white, another line of red. I don't know if this like resembles any specific flag or something. I don't know what I'm missing here. Almost looks like could be a French flag. It doesn't really make sense, I don't think, in this context, but there must be something going on with the way that they're arranged on this side. And then the Euphoria horns come on right after he's played for one team, then he goes to the other side of the field, plays for the other team, and then Euphoria comes on. So as Kendrick walks all the way down the field, now with the entire team unified behind him, everybody starts forming two lines, and the two lines are moving on either side of him, and it seems to form the letter I. Someone was saying that this seems to be in reference to the cover art of the song I, which itself had someone in red on one side, someone in blue on the other side, and the letter I in white in the middle, red, white, and blue. And they're also forming trinities with their hands in the background. So the idea of the red, white, and blue representing America's Holy Trinity is pretty core to, again, not just Kendrick's messaging in general, but this Super Bowl in specific. Very much a full circle moment for many, many things Kendrick's been saying for a very long time. Now, something I've been lost on, Kendrick seems to say, I know y'all play sleep ever since Parmoni. That's KDOT. I don't know what the hell Parmoni is, or if that's what that's what it sounds like. Ever since Parmoni is KDOT. I don't know what that means. I haven't heard anybody break that one down yet for me. But this is the moment where he is finally fully singularly just in the camera. Everyone else has passed him. It's, they all spelled the letter I, and then singularly it became I, just him, saying directly at the camera, basically letting us know that this is what's happening. Like, because as many people pointed out, none of us expected Euphoria. We all expected that maybe Not Like Us was playing. When he plays Euphoria, it's practically clinching it. Like, it took my brain like a moment to catch up to the fact it was even happening. Like, I couldn't process it was real. I heard the horns and I went, wait a minute, those horns. For some reason, I feel this deep excitement in my soul. Oh, right, those are the Euphoria. Shoo! And you get that little pop, all of the lampposts shooting out like some sort of firework, I guess. And then so Kendrick has now, again, he went down the street. He came back down the street with everybody. He unified the teams. He became the singular out of everything. And then now, this moment, I feel like kind of takes a second to chill out and spell what just happened. Like, the Man at the Garden moment is kind of like outside of time. It's like an emotional reset. Because the camera work even, like, it takes us out of the continued movement of the scene where we have been with Kendrick. We followed him from the car. We followed, the dancers were surrounding him. They went down the stairs. They went across the field. We never broke this consistent sense of contact. But then after the pop, the camera just kind of goes skyward like in anime. And then it comes back down from the sky like in anime, focusing on a street lamp and a guy like chilling on the street lamp. And then we rejoin Kendrick and there's this kind of sense of, wait a minute, where did we just go? Like, how did we get here? Almost, because we had been so consistent. It's such an interesting take on Man at the Garden because the original, the song that's on the album is like very spiritual, like, feeling. It's like it's a song of like trying to pick yourself up and be like, yes, I do deserve everything. Like, no matter how dark I might feel about my life, I know that I still am who I think I am and that I do deserve this. It's that self-empowerment anthem type feel that you listen to pick yourself up if you need that strength. This version is very different because we've all focused on it kind of being like a doo-wop a cappella, but it's also like darker and more like intense, and Kendrick's rapping more like, I don't know, more straightforwardly. Like, it sounds more like a Kendrick Lamar song almost, and less like a sort of timeless conception of a song. Like, I feel like Man at the Garden as it was performed is a type of a song that exists that Kendrick was playing into, and this is kind of stripping that down and turning it into like a more regular Kendrick Lamar rap song that he might have been doing, backed by a cappella vocalizations in the streets, if he was trying to rap with his friends. Like, this is the natural flow. This is not the version of this song that is for the audience. This is the version of the song where he's really saying these lyrics the way he means them. You know, the way that he actually feels about this is like, why do you think you deserve the greatest of all time? You know, like the way it builds to that in the song is like this epic emotional closer. But the way he really feels about that is like, no, you really need to actually prove that to me, by the way. You know, why do you think you deserve the greatest of all? The way he says it, you know, particularly with Donald Trump in the audience, as many people have noted, a lot of people think the 40 acres and a mule is the best line. Trump doesn't know what's going on. You know, he doesn't know that was said. I like the dismissiveness. The why do you think you deserve? Ugh, like there's almost a disgust the way he like drops the subject as he leaves the scene. You know, he doesn't express it like it's braggadocious. He doesn't express it like, yeah, y'all don't even deserve me, I'm so great. He expresses it like, ugh, you don't even deserve me, you know? All right, so this is where stuff really gets crazy on the symbolism level, because, again, we kind of teleport out of that scene. I really do think that was like an interstitial, like, intermission kind of moment that we had in this story. We're going from Act 1 to Act 2, deduct one life, you know? And when I say deduct one life, the way I had taken this initially, Kendrick is here with his Gemini shadow clone, right? It's supposed to be him and another him. One of them died here. If we think of this like Sekiro, shadows die twice, where like, you know, you always get 2 lives before you really die. So he lost his first of the 2 he's got. The commentary on, you know, showing up with the homies is the cultural cheat code. You know, we already had Kendrick with this large group of people behind him on the To Pimp a Butterfly cover. Like, it is literally like a shorthand for culture to just show literally, here's all the guys from my block, you know, here's what we look like. Here's me and the people who made me, the people who I'm trying to fit in with right here on the cover. And so he calls it the cultural cheat code. And yeah, this idea that Kendrick just like pulled up with a car and yeah, he's got everybody with him. And that's what this is going to be about, is I've got everybody with me. I was celebrating that pretty heavily as what this thing is. But of course, America's not going to like that. Of course, Uncle Sam's not going to like that. That's not what we paid for. We didn't pay for you and your friends to just come have a good time and hang out. We want, you know, we want blood, goddammit. And so then they deduct one life. And what life did we lose? We lost X's life. And if you had any doubt that the song Peekaboo was about the idea that Drake had something to do with X's death, this performance is here to assuage that doubt. A lot of people pointed out the fact that he's performing in a big X. Not as many people pointed out as the commenter on Thought Crime's video did, that the X is directly over the number 30, Roman numeral XXX, like very visibly. There's an above shot that you can see the whole number 30 inside of the X. So the intentionality here is off the fucking charts in terms of sending this message through metaphor. This is art with all caps. And the fact that the way this heavy message is delivered is like the funniest shot in the world, where like the camera just suddenly spawns inside of this bizarre red room where there's a bunch of guys doing like a pelvic thrust dance that like it feels like you just entered an SCP or something, like very alien and funny. And Kendrick just kind of casually strolls into it, but like there's no obvious way in or out. So it's kind of like, well, how the fuck did we get in here? How the fuck did you get in here? Peekaboo. The way he delivers the lyrics of Peekaboo, by the way, is incredible. Once again, this is a totally different performance from how it is on the album. And it's one of those that on the album he's trying to sound cool and kind of laid back because it's something that you can put on in any context and just kind of listen to. But if you're performing it with the hype level of this is something that 50,000 people are listening to and I want them to hear the lyrics, again, it reveals how much more difficult the song actually is than it sounds. I know some people are upset that he didn't do the bing boop bop boom boom bop blam. That is probably one of the, there's only 2 like criticisms I have of this performance at all that I think are sincerely like a little bit of a letdown. The lack of a bing boop bop, especially since that's the most famous part of the song. I like that he manages to mention AZ, you know, because AZ Chike is also on the song, the full song. So like I've been putting forward the theory that AZ Chike basically made all this possible because the sound that Not Like Us has, that Peekaboo has, that TV Off has, that Squabble Up has, this specifically Compton sound, that is his sound. Like, if you go listen to his albums, every song sounds like that. And he had the song Movie on Schoolboy Q's album that was like one of the more popular, especially locally, songs on the album. You could hear Schoolboy talk about this on the Danny Brown interview. And like, that was like the standout moment from Schoolboy's album. Obviously Kendrick heard it. And the fact that Not Like Us sounded like that, I was saying even before GNX came out, like, yeah, that had to have been influenced by AZ Chike. And then he puts out an album where half of it sounds like that and AZ's on one of the songs. So like, you know, even if it wouldn't have necessarily made sense to put him actually in the performance, just because this thing is so streamlined and so narrative driven that like complicating it with too many guest features would have been like even crazier and also thrown people off because they don't really know what's going on. But I'm glad that for anybody who does know, he made sure that got shouted out. There's even a video of AZ like reacting to, you know, him and his family seeing this happening and being excited about it. So that made me happy to see. Now, these girls that Kendrick comes over to start talking to when he's like teasing that they're going to make the Not Like Us, performance. I love these girls so much. That girl on the left, I could not take my eyes off of her when I was watching this. Making fun of the fact that Drake likes to sue is particularly hilarious. So yeah, as Kendrick goes walking down towards SZA, of course it's all the ladies in red that are following him. We are now entering the feminine side of the show, and he's walking back down the field. I don't know if I really made this clear yet already, but I think that the right side of the field is also representing femininity in this equation, which is really interesting because, again, typically when we talk about these metaphors, where like if we're talking about right side in politics, right? Well, that's people who wear red, but it's typically white men, not black women. But he's putting the women on the right in that metaphor, but also on the right in this other metaphor where men are on the left and women are on the right. It's really interesting what he's doing here, colliding all this stuff. And I promise you all of this is intentional. Y'all have seen the level of depth of thought he's put into this. I promise you all of this means something the way it's being done. It's very careful. Now, when we finally get to SZA performing inside of the womanhood cluster, all the ladies are laying down. You know, she's in this awesome pose. Her fucking outfit's incredible. And this is the first time we have women in blue. SZA's wearing all red, but all the women around her are in blue. So I find that interesting because it's putting her into her own bifurcation, you know, like it's not like she is just the representative of like all womanhood just by herself. There is a complication that she's representing within womanhood, that there is a spectrum of colors in there as well. When she hits that fucking note on Shore, Better Days Coming for sure. I'm not going to try to imitate it. Magical. It literally brings a tear to my eye every time I hear it because I love this song. And so, you know, when you hear a live version of a song you love, you're always hoping there's going to be something that elevates it. And that is that moment. It was like, oh, yep, clinched. This is great. You know, glad I got to hear this. Glad I got to hear this song I love done with a little extra, you know, flourish to make it even more special. Okay, so her jacket says Lana, which I believe is also the name of the new version of her album. Now, it's interesting to slot the two SZA songs into this beef, right? I didn't really know the song All the Stars like that. I had not spent a lot of time with the Black Panther soundtrack. So, you know, what the kid who was like super excited about SZA was like freaking out that they were actually playing this at the party I was at. But this is the one song I don't know that well, and probably because it's slower. It's a little bit less hip hop, but apparently this can be taken as a Drake diss. Someone pointed this out in one of the videos I watched, that this song could be taken as an early indication of some of the things that Kendrick was going to say about Drake later. And if I'm being honest, while Luther I don't think is specifically about Drake himself, I do think it speaks to what this whole beef represents, right? Because what Kendrick has been saying with all of this is, if it were up to me, I would take those motherfuckers out and I would give everything to you. I would take these vultures, I would shake them down, and I would give everything to the culture, you. You know, if it was up to me, I wouldn't give nobody no sympathy. I'd give you everything if this world were mine. I do think there is this aspect of, like, who is this for? Kendrick's kind of answering that question. Why do I need to take out Drake? And the answer is for women. It's for black women, specifically. That's who Drake has been the most poisonous to. Well, and young black men like X, who he's, you know, possibly outright gotten killed. But, like, this is the culture that Kendrick is protecting, is the ability of women like SZA to have a flourishing career without having to compete with this fucking psychotic pedophile. By the way, as much as people are going to act like they didn't know who SZA was or whatever, when the crowd fucking goes ape shit when she starts singing the hook to All the Stars. It's a cultural divide. I'm going to get it on the floor. So, in case you haven't noticed, what are the cultural divides? You got red versus blue, right? You got men versus women. You got right versus left. And Kendrick's right in the middle of all of it, representing everything. He is the man, the car. He is the woman, Gloria. He is red, white, and blue. He is I, singularly representing all of Black America. And in order to define yourself, really the only thing that defines yourself is, what are you not? If I am not the air surrounding me, then that means I am only whatever is not inclusive of the air surrounding me, right? They not like us. So whoever is they is what is not inclusive within Kendrick Lamar. If he embodies all of Black America, then the only things that don't qualify as Kendrick are anything that's not Black America. And Black America can include Black people wearing white. What it does not include is Drake. What it does not include is Canadian imperialists. You know, like, there is a bridge too far for Kendrick Lamar, and that bridge is Drake. He is the human representation of everything unacceptable to this man and the culture that he wants us to be living inside of. At the very least, hip-hop culture. 40 Acres and a Mule, this is bigger than the music. This is not about Drake. This is about culture. This is about what we accept. This is about who we allow. This is about control. This is about, what are you allowed to do? What are you allowed to say? Where are you allowed to be? What can you say where and in what context, and who's trying to control your ability to do that? Donald Trump wasn't even the one who told Kendrick Lamar, you're not allowed to play Not Like Us in front of however many people. He probably would say, of course you can do that. Drake's the one who said you can't do that. That's why he doesn't get to be at the performance. Like, imagine being Drake and, like, knowing you can't go to the Super Bowl. Like, them superpowers been neutralized. And of course, you know, again, who is this for? Who did he have to walk Drake down for? Black women. That's why you got 4 incredibly beautiful Black women marching behind him, crip walking all the way down the field as they walk that man down. By the way, Jabronio, like, instead of OVO, Jabronio. The whole bit where he's walking around in the circle, again, the full circle moment, it's so much fun. I think my favorite part is when he just starts, like, doing his arm back and forth and everybody's swinging their arms along with him, because it's just kind of like, the image kind of says, like, I could walk around this circle all day. Like, you know, I'm just getting warmed up, starting to get my blood flowing. I still haven't figured out if they are spelling something with this arrangement when he says probably A minor. It really looks like it. It looks like it might be letters, but I cannot figure this out. Is this Morse code? Somebody put this into one of those, like, visuals to music editors or something. So another thing I'm noticing, actually, in these overhead shots that I hadn't caught or mentioned before is that you got all the red, white, and blue dancers out on the field in this array that they're very integrated. But on all four of the spaces, all four of the stages are now covered in people wearing all black. So there's just tons of people in all black covering all the stages that Kendrick had been on before, implying, like we blacked out the game. Like, the game has been dominated. We've blacked out the whole game. And I'm paused on 11 minutes, 23 seconds on the NFL upload, which is where you can see the guy who comes out of the truck. I guess there must be secret underground doors onto all these stages that these guys had come up on. But somebody came out of the truck with a Free Palestine and Free Jordan flag, with Jordan and Palestine flags. Obvious protest move. This person's been banned out of the NFL. People were worried they were going to press charges against this guy. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. I think this obviously fits the spirit and message, and it's a perfect moment that it happens. Like, the way it looks in this image, like, just perfectly backlit in, there's everybody, the sea of people in black, and then you just see the flags, like, vibrating in the background. It's just enough that most people will miss it because it's distracting. It's off to the left and there's a huge amount of things happening in the middle of the frame. But if you catch it, it's very there. And yeah, this is the point where, like, we start to reach almost that same full, like, borderline chaos that we had at the pop out, where it's just like a tremendous number of people dancing in, a vaguely coordinated group. But, like, again, this is like the most fun it could be, right? Like, everyone's on stage. That's the vibe of this. This isn't just a show for you to be in the audience. This is a show for you to be a part of. You make the show. You, as an audience member shouting A minor, that is part of the show. That is part of the point. And part of the point here is how many people are in this performance, that, like, just hundreds of people get summoned up to just be in it. And that's what everyone up there was doing that night. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention at the moment when Sam Jackson criticizes the strat that Kendrick's employing, there's like over the audience, the lights say, like, wrong way or something like that, or like go back, like something that sounds like what a video game tells you when you're going in the wrong direction. And when they're doing TV off, all the dancers have very clearly coordinated themselves into red, white, and blue, like, lines. It's no longer super integrated. Now it's, like, very rigidly militant, and they're kind of marching like a band. I will say, I said there were two criticisms I had of this performance. My other one is that, of course, when I heard TV off and I thought this will definitely get performed at the Super Bowl, I was imagining a gigantic marching band performing it. Like, I have wanted to see TV off with a giant marching band performing it for quite some time. And, like, watching the performance, it didn't, like, hit, like, everything that was happening was so wild. It didn't, like, occur to me in the moment. It wasn't until I think the company man mentioned it, and I was like, huh, yeah. Now that you mention it, that is something I had kind of been looking forward to that I didn't get. So, in that sense, I guess I could say it's disappointing, but it's hard to be disappointed with what we got. I mean, the shots of Kendrick and Mustard with the camera circling around them, Mustard's choreography is just so much fun to watch. I think the scene rules. The second time that the big Mustard yell happens, so Kendrick has cleared himself out of the center of the field, and everybody on both sides comes running in. So once again, it's like the two teams are converging, we've got our squabble up, but they all end up meeting in the middle and forming one super team again. So once again, you've got this implication that everyone is united behind Kendrick, and they all kind of split away, leaving him singularly in the middle, similar to how it was earlier with the eye segment. But this time he turns the TV off, and he's got the biggest smile on his face, the biggest I did it, like, I really did it, I really, really did it look on his face as he puts that remote up to you and turns your ass off. You hear the beep and it says game over in the crowd above. All right, before I finally move on with my life and get over this halftime show maybe a little bit, I've got to offer some parting thoughts on just why this whole TV off sentiment means so much to me. Why was I looking forward to this so much? as the big closer, as the way I knew this was going to go and end. And it has to do with Kendrick, again, playing the whole field, being in this game, acknowledging it as a game, and basically saying, I'm going to play the game. And I'm going to play all teams, all positions. In fact, I'm going to redefine the game in my image. I'm going to change the nature of the game. I'm going to end the game that you think you know, and I'm going to start a new game based around my rules, my expectations, and my taste. Taste at the forefront. Kendrick stands for good taste. Good taste is not inclusive of television. Good taste is not inclusive of Drake. Good taste is not inclusive of the ways that Drake walks, talks, or dresses, or the types of women that he surrounds himself with. Good taste is inclusive of Kendrick Lamar and his dumbass jeans and his awesome car and the several hundred incredibly cool friends that he has, that he gets to have cool dance parties with in front of everyone in the world. Dance parties that make all of us reconsider the way we're doing our dance parties. That make literally everyone go, maybe we should think about doing that kind of a dance party. And what is that kind of a dance party? It's one where like everybody has to be so physically fit and on their game that they can dance across a football field for 12 straight minutes, as opposed to, you know, so strung out on drugs that they can just throw their body up and down over and over and make loud noises, you know? Turn this TV off is a rebuke of addiction. Addiction is the real thing that Kendrick is fighting. That is what Drake represents. Drake's a gambling addict. That's why he's fucked up his whole life. He is swimming in addiction. Addiction to pills, addiction to music as a form of mellowing. You know, like the type of music that he creates to pacify him. Kendrick never did double down on that line. I think he kind of did. He could have quadrupled down on that line. He doubled down on that line in the sense that you make music to pacify him as a pedophile joke because of pacifiers, but he did not double down on it in the sense that Drake's music literally is meant to make people feel okay with doing nothing. That's what modern music has been since Drake's been famous. And if you want to understand, like, just go listen to Todd in the Shadows talk about music through any of the 2010s. Every single time he did the pop song year in review, you know, he's been reviewing pop songs since before the 2010s. And it used to be that songs were obnoxiously chipper and in your face and party. And then it got to a point where they became obnoxiously dour, obnoxiously drug-addled, obnoxiously out of it. And that's the Drake era. And that's what, you know, killed all these fucking Zoomers, is that they came up in this era of addiction being at such a prominence that, you know, even though people like Kendrick were massively popular and were really, you know, getting songs like ADHD out there and Swimming Pools out there that were making people reconsider, you know, that kind of hedonistic approach to life, nonetheless, plenty of popular rappers were Lil Wayne, you know, who desperately wanted this spot to perform, who would have been the perfect face of advertising, because advertising's all about creating addictions within you. Kendrick being here is a total contradiction. Someone said, like, he should be in the spot of Talib Kweli or something, or Black Thought. Yeah, absolutely. That's the level of intellectualism he's presenting. But for whatever reason, he has this instinct that lets him speak to the youth in a way that those guys can't. Black Thought is an old guy. He's always been an old guy. He's old at heart. He's been an old guy since he was a young guy. Kendrick Lamar has also been an old guy since he was a young guy. He used to say he feels like he's 73 or whatever in like a whole up. But he's different in that, for whatever reason, he translates to youth in such a way that 11-year-old white kids know all the words to Not Like Us, and little kids know peekaboo. And he is not condescending. He doesn't speak directly to kids. You know, he's obviously very against speaking directly to kids in the way that Drake is doing it. But he, nonetheless, his message translates in a way where young children are listening to Kendrick Lamar and realizing that they need to be watching out for child predators. And like, we try to teach kids this through cute stuff like Stranger Danger. You know what works way better than Stranger Danger? They Not Like Us. Because Stranger Danger implies that strangers are the problem. No, Drake's not a stranger to anybody. The reason Drake has so much power is that he's familiar to everybody. That's why he's able to do these things. Usually, familiarity empowers evil. So Kendrick is drawing a line. He's saying it's not about whether you know them or not. It's about who are they? Are they or are they us? They not like us. They not like us. If you have, I mean, it's such an easy shorthand to give your child, right? Let's say your kid's going to try to go talk to somebody who you can tell they shouldn't be talking to. Used to be you would say stranger danger. Now you could say, honey, they not like us. They not like us. You know what remember what Kendrick said? They not like us. Stay away from them. Predators move in flocks. You stay away from them. You know, that's how you can teach your children now. And that's how children are just learning. They're just learning it straight from the song. They love the song. But TV off is even more powerful, right? Because every time the TV's making you upset, you've got somebody in your mind now reminding you, turn this TV off. Turn this TV off. Just turn it off. Just turn the fucking TV off. This message is so important to me. Like, growing up, all I watched was cartoons, really. I learned about other things through cultural osmosis, but the only thing I was, like, putting the TV on for was cartoons. And once I got into my late teens, I discovered that I could watch everything on the internet. So I abandoned TV completely. You know, other people in my house might have TVs on. So, like, for a lot of my late teens and my early 20s, you know, living with my family, if I went into another room, I'm going to see what's on the TV. And I assimilate data quickly. So, you know, I always knew what's on the TV, and I hate it. I always hate whatever's on the TV. I'm always like, why are y'all watching this, you know? And once my brothers grew up and they moved out of the house, they didn't hook up cable in their houses. You know, we're all internet only. My parents, though, they watch a lot of TV. They live with an old man, you know, 90-year-old man. My dad loves watching the news. My mom gets so upset by everything she sees on the news, and she starts spiraling and dooming out and, you know, getting anxious, and she creates some interesting art out of it and stuff. But, like, it takes so much focus away from, like, working on herself, you know, it takes so much focus away from just trying to, like, live the best life you can. Turning the TV off does so much more good for her, you know? For instance, with the Super Bowl, Mama don't care about the Super Bowl. She watches sports contextually to my dad watching sports. So there's no emotional investment for her in this game. As soon as Kendrick said turn the TV off, she did it because she knew intellectually that is a healthier thing for her to do. You know, my dad wasn't home because he's off on a business trip. So there was no incentive for her to keep the TV on. So she would have, though. Like, I think if he hadn't literally said turn this TV off, the natural feeling is, well, you keep watching the Super Bowl, you know, but, like, if you don't care about the Super Bowl and then the most interesting part of it is a person telling you, all right, you can turn the TV off now, which apparently 1.2 million people did. Yeah, I hope everybody sees that, like, the power that was in those lyrics has now been shown. Kendrick literally did tell America to turn the TV off, and they are doing it. And obviously for me and the people who are younger than me, this feels like obvious. Like, of course we turn the TV off. But, like, I also think this is the most punk thing I've ever seen. And, like, the second I heard it, I thought that, right? The second I heard the song for the first time, I thought this is the most punk thing imaginable, is to go on the biggest televised event that there is and command the audience to turn the TV off. It feels pop in a way because it's American, right? Like I already said, Americans are contrarian. We love our ability to be contrarian. We love our ability to be stupid and silly and say something that just doesn't make sense contextually. But in this context, it's more like makes so much sense, like it makes super sense. It makes so much sense that even advertisers think it's a good idea because they're just thinking about like what it means in terms of, well, the most people possible will watch. And it's like, yeah, but are you really thinking about the message they're getting? Because even if most people aren't going to turn the TV off, a lot of people are. And a lot of people are going to think about that forever. They're always going to remember to turn the TV off. You know, and I don't think when Kendrick said, like, you got the wrong guy to the NFL, like, I really don't think they understand that he is, even in creating their biggest night ever, ensuring that there cannot be another one. No other artist can put on this show. The reason that they need an artist at the peak of their game is because this show has been dying for years. They're using, like, the halftime show is the only thing, halftime show and advertising is the only thing that keeps the Super Bowl being the biggest night of television. If Kendrick tells you that this is the last time it's ever going to be this good, you can turn the TV off now, the TV's off forever. You're never going to get you're never going to get another Super Bowl halftime show this big. It's just not going to happen again. Unless a new artist comes out that is so tremendously bigger than anything we've ever seen before that, decides that they also want to use the NFL as their platform. But, like, I don't think it's even going to be possible that somebody younger than Kendrick would care this much about the NFL. Like, he grew up in an era where I think maybe football was even more loved than it's becoming, and now I think it's slowly turning into a bit of a joke because of all this, because of the Taylor Swiftification of it, and the sort of memification of football. That I think Kendrick is lampooning here too. He's like, hey, as fun as it is to watch football, it's more what it means culturally that makes it important. I don't think he cares about the teams or the players or the league. He cares about football because it is football, not because it's NFL football. But yeah, to me, like, writing a song that says turn the TV off with the obvious clear intent of playing it during the Super Bowl is like the equivalent of writing a song that starts off, I am an antichrist and I am an anarchist, and then getting to play that on TV ever, And I guess you could argue that punk didn't destabilize the establishment. It just became a part of the establishment. But I don't think the point of punk was ever to necessarily dismantle anything as much as it was an expression of the inability to do so. It's like, it's basically saying like, hey, I could literally shout about how I want anarchy at the top of my lungs and all of you can sing along with me, and that's not going to be enough to create anarchy. Like, there's nothing we can really do except for take care of ourselves. And when you take care of yourself, your life will just be better than it will be if you agonize over what you can't do. So the message of his whole existence is like, literally just go run. Like, he's begging his audience. I don't do as much as you all admire me, as much as you all think I have the answers, all I'm doing is going for a long run every morning and then reading hip hop news all day, like indulging culture, as he would put it. He just immerses himself in culture and goes for long runs. That's Kendrick's life. It's not that different from my dad. My dad goes for a 60 to 100-mile bike ride almost every single morning. He does an elaborate workout every morning in the gym in between working. He works from home, so his work is sitting at a computer, checking up on various things that he manages around the country, watching the news intermittently, and then when work is over, watching even more news and whatever cool shows are on, and then going to bed. And like, my dad understands what is happening in culture to an extent that he gets the zeitgeist, but like physically, what this man is doing is going for a bike ride every day and being in a couple of chairs, like that's his life. That's Kendrick's life. That's all of our lives. But yet most of us are doing that and weeping about how disenfranchised we are. And we are all very disenfranchised. And a lot of us are like, not me, I'm a straight white man or whatever the fuck. And it's like, no, you too, you want to be those things because you think that it's empowering. But like, it's not going to be forever. Sorry, buddy. We're pulling that rug out from under you. Like, there's nothing that empowers you beyond your own humanity and your willpower and your will to power, so to speak. And it's not that I'm saying you can do, like, everybody can achieve what Kendrick can achieve. No, we're not all geniuses. We're not all in this unique position of having a brain that can do that. Kendrick is beyond. He obviously came from more difficult circumstances than most Americans, but just is better at what he's set out to do. He just moves different. The type of skits he's on, we wouldn't understand. A major theme of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers that I connected with a lot, and of The Heart Part 5, which came out before Mr. Morale, is this problem of people looking up to you and how there's nothing you can really do to stop them. That inevitably, in just being yourself, there are people who are going to look at you and think, wow, you are better than me. Or, like, you can do this thing better than me. Or there's something about you that I'm going to copy because I think it'll make me a better version of myself. And so it is just inevitable that even if you personally think, yeah, but you shouldn't copy me because actually either A, what I'm doing isn't working as well as you think it is, or B, I don't understand what I'm doing that well, or, like, what I'm doing can't be understood just by looking at it because there's more interiority to it or there's more complexity. Like, there's a lot of reasons I've experienced as an artist for why I had realizing that people were looking up to me was, like, deeply traumatic for me, because in my 20s, I had this phase where, like, I'm really trying to achieve self-actualization, and I don't know what that means, and all these people are kind of, like, following me and trying to get me to be the person they want me to be, and that's not who I was trying to be, you know? And so I've got all these people looking up to me who are also kind of becoming disappointed. I'm like, I never asked any of you to look. I actually explicitly told people you shouldn't look up to me. I'm very young and I don't know what I'm doing, you know? But you can't stop it because other people are even younger and even less know what they're doing, and they're gonna look up to you and they're gonna be disappointed by your failures, and there's nothing you can do about that. So I think a big part of this era has been Kendrick's acceptance of his own messianic role, that, like, it doesn't matter if he shouldn't have been the chosen one. He is. It doesn't matter if somebody else would have been the right guy. He's the guy. You picked the right time, you picked the wrong guy. That's his opinion. But he's trying to be the best that he can be because he's already been chosen. He's already got that responsibility thrust on him. And, you know, that's what makes him like the real life Spider-Man, why he is able to be at that level of, because like Spider-Man, he is, like, messianically obsessed with this idea that, well, if we all have this great responsibility, we should all be acting like it, right? And everybody else is going, I don't want to act like that. And he's going, well, you could, and it would make things better for you, and I'm going to show you that over and over and over again, and maybe some of you will try to copy it. You know, maybe some of you will put on your own mask and do your own heroism. And if I'm lucky, you'll be better than I am at it, you know? So, like, how do you deal with the paradox of, like, as an entertainer, if the only way you can get anyone to pay attention to your message is by playing the game, but the game itself is evil, and your message is, you know, ignore the game, don't listen to me, I'm in the game, therefore I'm evil, how do you get people to listen to you saying, don't listen to me? Turn this TV off. Turn this TV off. Turn this TV off. Turn this TV off. Who's on TV right now? Kendrick Lamar, you know? Now, granted, he doesn't tell you to turn the TV off until he's about to leave the TV, but that's how you get people to stop listening to you, is make a really funny game out of proving to them that there's something better they could do. You know, that, like, as much fun as this is, this little addiction you've got, there's something else you could be doing. And if you've been listening to me I've got 4.5 hours on my recording time here, You're definitely addicted. You're definitely addicted. I understand. I am too. I feel like, because Kendrick's message is something I agree with, I'm somehow allowed to expend more time on it. But, like, I don't know, instead of watching a bunch of people who I don't personally know that I have parasocial relationships with weigh in on their own personal parasocial relationship with this guy that none of us have known, some of us have met, but none of us know. Instead of doing that, I could have like talked to my friends or family. I could have done any amount of normal everyday things that were not spending upwards of 8 hours between listening and talking about Kendrick Lamar. And you could have also, but all my friends and family did see this performance. Some of them will hear this video. I do get to have conversations with my friends and family about Kendrick Lamar because he's so good that everybody with good taste agrees on him. And that's where, again, we're playing all sides of the field, right? The revolution is here. It is Kendrick Lamar. It doesn't matter if the message is turn the TV off. When the TV is on, it's also a good time. What if TV was just better? What if instead of TV we had something else that was cool, that wasn't just advertising? What if we had something that was meaningful, that was culture? What if we did have an excuse to gather 200 people and dance to a fun song about how you should look out for pedophiles because they're really bad? Like important life lessons about not listening to addicts. And, like dancing to that. Imagine. You don't have to. It's real. It's here. So, yeah, the revolution has arrived. I hope that this helps you appreciate it and that you enjoyed this incredibly long schizophrenic ranting. I've been Trixie the Golden Witch. All my links are below. Everyone else's links are below. I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Goodbye. Kendrick Lamar forever.